they smell like
When they call it first, I'm gonna go, I've got to do a presentation and go on this.
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you everyone for being with us for the county commission meeting this evening on October 16th. Let's briefly review the agenda.
I mean, you can stand up there.
All right. Do any commissioners have any questions about any items on the consent agenda? There are a couple of things I think by consensus, if there is a consensus, to add to the consent agenda. Mr. Wood has shared information with each of the commissioners about this. The first is, I'm sorry, this is not to, is Jasmine on the line? Yeah. Commissioner Beach-Ferrari, can you hear us okay?
I can, yes. I'm going to be on mute, but I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Commissioner Beach-Ferrara is traveling, but she's called into the meeting, and she will participate in the meeting and vote on any issues the commission votes on tonight. Okay, so I'm sorry, this is actually not a, what I was about to mention is not a consent agenda item. It's, but Mr. Joyner, on the, there is one item you suggested we add to the consent agenda on the Atlanta Pyrotechnics item. Okay, are all the commissioners aware of this, or do I need to? Okay, so on the resolution approving pyrotechnic experts for conducting fireworks displays, currently the Pyrotechnica organization, there's a location at the Biltmore State. On October 24th, there's been a request to also add Atlanta Pyrotechnics. The location for these fireworks will be at the Grove Park Inn, and the date will be October 27th of this October, this month. Is there a consensus to add that fireworks display to the consent agenda as well?
Yes.
Are you concerned? Okay, great. So when we vote on that matter, it will include Atlanta Pyrotechnics, Grove Park Inn, October 27th, 2018. Okay. All right. There are any other questions about consent agenda? Okay, there are two other items that the county manager has requested that we add to the regular agenda under new business. Both are related to recommendations that are coming out of the School Capital Resource Commission committee, which met yesterday, and has two recommendations to the county commission that we believe were valuable to act on sooner rather than later. The first is appropriation of $76,400 for the VBA study. This is the study that we discussed at our previous county commission, which will improve communications in all city and county schools so that emergency responders, police officers, and others can communicate effectively inside and outside the building. And we discussed that some in the last meeting. So there's $76,400 to hire a professional firm to do an assessment of all city and county schools where we think this could be a question. And then based on that study, the commission appears very supportive of implementing a project that's probably going to be up to $2 million to cover all city and county schools. But you're not voting on that tonight, you're just voting on the study to confirm what the need is. We think that process will take about 6 weeks. We'll talk about it more, but are there any concerns about adding that item for discussion on the agenda tonight? Thank you. The other item is similar in nature, and that is a request for $400,000 that will be allocated from School Capital Resource Commission funds for a comprehensive safety study of all public schools in Buncombe County. And this is sort of a comprehensive assessment looking at all public schools for how we can improve the physical environment to make them safer environments throughout the county. And so there's a positive recommendation on that from the School Capital Commission as well. And we'd like to add that for discussion at the commission meeting tonight as well. Are there any concerns about having that for discussion? Not asking for commitments on how you vote, but just to discuss it tonight.
No.
Okay, we're going to add both of those under new business. I believe there was also one other just change on the agenda, a request to move the motion regarding the Scott Jones Council from old business to new business. Okay, so if there's agreement to do that, we put that under new business. All right, are there any other questions about any other items on the agenda? All right, if hearing none, let's just go ahead and get this meeting started. Max, I think we're ready to begin the opening video. The 2018 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin our meeting this evening, I'd like to invite everyone with us into a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Please join me in a moment of silence. We are grateful for this day, for our community, its strength and diversity, for its natural beauty, for the natural beauty of this area and its people. Help us to be good stewards of time and talent. Help us to live into our best selves in the face of adversity and challenge. And help us to remember that the call to leadership is one of servanthood and service. Amen.
Chairman
Yes, sir.
Newton.
Yes, sir.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Jerry Rice, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Come back, Jerry.
Good to see you.
Good to have you back.
Sorry about your wife, we understand, but glad to see you back.
Thank you.
All right, before we begin the meeting, I wanted to announce that there is parking validation, and so if you use the county parking facilities next to the administrative building to attend this meeting, you can get parking validation from the sheriff's deputies who are attending the meeting who are here, so feel free to see them on the way out. And if you use transit to get here, they also have validation for transit service as well. So we want to make it easy for you to attend the meeting, so feel free to use that. I want to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the board tonight. All right, we come to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition that we discussed in the pre-meeting to include Atlanta Pyrotechnics location Grove Park Inn, October 27, 2018, regarding the resolution approving pyrotechnic experts for conducting fireworks displays.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We now come to good news. And the first item here is Scott Mashburn with Buncombe County Solid Waste Department has placed second at the National Swana Rodeo. So we want to acknowledge that, and Dane Peterson is here, and we want to hear from you guys about what happened.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I've got my bodyguards here with me this evening. So remember that, considering any future solid waste items on the agenda. No, this is Scott Mashburn, transfer truck driver with the transfer station, and Nick Edmonds, he's our transfer station manager. So two key people in what makes our programs function and happen and be as efficient and safe as we are. So thankful to be here tonight, especially on the good news section. So I want to talk about Scott and brag on him and his recent accomplishments. Earlier this year, in a state-held Swana Rodeo competition, Scott was able to come away with second place at the state level. That was at Raleigh, Scott, earlier this year. So that secured his spot at the international level. So last month, Scott and Nick traveled out to Denver, Colorado, and they had a little bit of advantage on us, the altitude, the elevation. It's just an example how us country boys can adapt to situations. So Scott overcome that, some obviously high-level competition, and Scott come away with second place. So we're very proud. I'd like to give him a round of applause. Scott worked for the county for close to 13 years now, Scott. And I'll tell you, he's a pleasure to work with. He is just one example of the great people we have in this department. And as good as he is to work with, he's as good or better a truck driver as he was able to show. So again, thank you for the time. We're proud of Scott. Thank you for sharing this with us, and congratulations, Scott.
Great job, Scott. All right, next up, we have Josh O'Connor with us, who is going to talk about the Buncombe County Recreation Services Tourism Product Development Fund capital request that the county has put forward for consideration for the Inca Recreational Destination and Inca Heritage Trail Project. So, Josh, thanks for being with us.
All right.
Looks like we've got a team as well. So thank you all for being with us, and also give us an update on this great project.
Okay. If I can get Max to load the PowerPoint, I'm going to run you all through what we're doing with the sports park and the surrounding facilities, give you an idea of what the project entails. This is the Inca Recreation Destination. That's kind of the package that we put everything in for the Tourism Product Development Fund application that we made to the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority. Our vision is to create a premier sports facility developed around Buncombe County citizens, but also serving as an economic development and regional athletic, or a driver of economic development and regional athletic competitions and events. So this is just a map of what we've already got going on at the Inca site, the former BASF plant, and some of the additional industries that have taken over that space as time has progressed. It shows what's there now and a little bit of what we propose to be there, but I'm going to skip past that map because we've got a better one here in a couple of slides. These are the current conditions at the sports park. Earlier this year, after the John B. Lewis Soccer Complex was flooded, we started to have a capacity problem at the sports park because we're now taking on a lot of the soccer and recreational demand that was formerly placed at that facility. So this is over Father's Day weekend, pretty sizable crowd. Over that weekend, we hosted about 10,000 people at the sports park. The overall event represented about 2,300 room nights for the Buncombe County Tourism and Development Authority. As you can see in this picture, those are some of the capacity issues that we're already having. We're having to jam too many people into the sports park in too small amount of time. So one of the ideas that we have, and you have this map, or should have this map in your packet, was to expand our functionality at the sports park by adding lights, which would extend the number of hours we could play a day, and turfing 3 of the fields, which would make the fields that are only available 6 months out of the year currently because of grass conditions and having to allow those to set and regrow year-round. So we're really expanding our capacity to be a year-round generator of sports tourism and expanding what we can host there. In addition to those soccer field expansions, we've also taken the opportunity to include some things that have been pretty frequently requested by our sports park users. So item C on this map, we have a dog park. It's probably one of our #1 new requests that we currently don't have in our inventory with Buncombe County Recreation Services. Let's see. We have items G, H, and I, which are in the southeast corner of that map. That's going to add a new recreation field to take over the capacity that we're displacing from the turf field. So we're taking away one community space by turfing a field. That one's going to be in competition more. We're adding a new community play space external to the sports park so that we have a space that people can play on even if they're not involved in formal leagues. We're also adding a 4-way interactive soccer court, which I don't believe I have a picture of in this presentation. That allows people with varying mobility capacities to play any type of field sport on a small course. It's something that is interactive. We can reprogram it and do a number of things with it. We're also adding a sports agility course to add to our sports training capacities at the sports park. One of the things that seams this whole project together is about a 2-mile section of greenway that'll follow along Hominy Creek. It'll connect the Buncombe County Sports Park with the newly constructed Bob Lewis Ballpark and allow people to go between the 2 facilities and allow for some shared use for parking and some things that really pump up our capacity out there. This map is cutting off a little bit, just a different view on some of the changes out there. The fields that we're turfing are fields 8, 1, and 2, if you're familiar with the Buncombe County Sports Park. Those are the fields shown in the upper right-hand corner. And we've just got some more detail in this map. The big thing that I would point out is along the creek, in the map that's on the left, we have a patch of river cane that we're working with the Cherokee and some other community partners to preserve. It's one of 2% of the original stands that were thought to be in this area. We're working to make sure that there's access to the river cane and to make sure that we're preserving its natural environment. This is an expansion of the work that we've been doing with Greenways. It falls in line with our existing work. It helps us to set an anchor in the Inca community that will connect to some of the other areas that we're building Greenways to. And one thing we know about Greenways is for every $1 of trail construction that we invest, that supports $1.72 annually from local businesses revenue, sales tax revenue, and benefits related to health and transportation. And that figure came out of a North Carolina Department of Transportation study that we just completed at the beginning of this year. The funding for this project, you as a commission dedicated $1.2 million that allowed us to pursue a $4.8 million grant from the Federal Highway Administration. We used that money to leverage a $6 million ask from the TDA's Tourism Product Development Fund. They do require a 50% match, so that $1.2 million we were able to accumulate some capital and go for a larger match for an overall $12 million project is what we're attempting to build up here. So 10% county money, 90% external money allowed us to achieve a pretty large project. This is just a rundown of the things that we're adding. We've got the 3 turf fields, lighting for the turf fields, also lighting at the Bob Lewis Ballpark. Now that that facility is complete, they understand that they could add about 30% more capacity by adding lighting there. We'll be adding some natural surface trails to allow people to circulate to the parks easier, increase the handicap accessibility of the entire facility, additional parking, some challenge courses, a new picnic pavilion that's connected to our existing orchard space at the sports park and our community garden that'll also offer Wi-Fi capacity. The dog park that I mentioned, restrooms up at Field 9. Currently we have about a half-mile gap where if you're at the top of the sports park, you've got to walk a half mile down to the bottom or in your car and drive down to the restrooms. So we're fixing that problem, which will make some of our fields available for more play. And then the new recreation quality field that I spoke about. The Inca Heritage Trail will include 2 bridge crossings over Hominy Creek, 2 miles of greenway. That's projected to be a 10-foot paved greenway trail that's handicap accessible. And we will also, as part of that, have some interpretive signage that allows people to understand the area that they're walking in, the connection to Inca, BASF, the Cherokee, and just really understand how that community has developed over time. Our preferred timeline for the project, if we're awarded the money from the Tourism Product Development Fund, we'd like to begin installation on turf because it's such an immediate community need as early as 2019. We've been working with Buncombe Soccer Association to develop some plans that will allow us to returf as soon as the spring season's over and bring that capacity online at the end of summer 2019 if all goes according to plan. So with that, I can take any questions that you might have on the project.
Any questions from commissioners?
I just got a couple comments. I appreciate the job that the team did and with the presentation to the TPDF. I got an opportunity to attend that. I want to make a couple comments on the trail. The trail is different than anything that we've done in Buncombe County. It's an educational trail. So it's going to have, as Josh mentioned, the Cherokee River cane and the protection of that and the location of those stands is a really big deal in bringing the community in Cherokee and Inca Candler and bringing the people that live between those areas, bringing them together. It's a really big deal historically and culturally. The Inca Heritage Trail, I commend you on the logo. It's great. Our local people should love it with the tower in it. And as people walk on this trail or ride a tricycle on this trail, this is not just for someone that wants to ride a bike at 30 miles an hour. Nothing wrong with that. But there's more opportunity here. People will be able to learn about the foliage area. They're going to be able to learn about the history of Inca. They're going to be able to learn about Hominy Valley as well as the Cherokee River cane. And the way that the commission went about seeking funding on it, we do have the FHWA grant. That has been approved, correct?
Sir.
Okay. And so the only part that's left is for the TPDF to step up and deliver, and I think they will. It's a great project. They should. Testing 1, 2. So, but I appreciate you taking the time to be able to do this tonight, and we've got some people from the community out there in the audience. I appreciate them coming also. So it's a big expansion. We need those turf fields out there. I mean, the other soccer fields are underwater right now, right?
They went under again last Thursday.
Yeah, so we need to be able to have the programming out there, and be really helpful. So thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I would echo. I think the staff did a great job at the tourism TDA meeting where they're considering this request from the county. It's a great project. You guys did a great job presenting it. What's the timeline on when there'll be a decision rendered on the proposal?
The expectation is that they'll announce it after their October 31st board meeting.
Well, I think there was a lot of support. Of course, there's a lot of other projects competing for resources too. So, but great job putting the county in a great position for that project. I think it's one of the best projects we've got going on in the county. So it's exciting. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all right. Thanks, Josh.
Before I go, I'll just recognize everybody that we've got here from Recreation Services, if I can get them to stand up.
Yeah.
And I'd also ask Tim Love and Nate Pennington, who've been a big help and support on the project, to stand up as well, so we can get a picture of them.
Please do.
Yeah, I'd be like, sure.
Ah.
All right, and I'll just introduce everybody really quick. I've got Chris Boonley. He's really spearheading the marketing and communications for this project. We've got Angie. She keeps me straight on the finances. Carla is our green waste planner. So she's had to hear about this project for quite some time. Lynn is, she handles all the programming needs and logistics for planning something like this. And Mac is the fall guy, where we sent him out in the middle of nowhere to put out equipment. But he's got a lot of good knowledge about the sports park and the maintenance level of our facilities. And we've also got Jeff, who's hiding out in the back, who's helped out with some of the project cost and estimations. Nate's had a lot of knowledge as the planning director that he's contributed to the project. And then Tim's helped us nail the economic development pieces as well. So, and also recognize the efforts of the communication team that helped get the word out about everything. So thank you all very much.
All right. Thank all of you. Great job. All right. Next up, we have a presentation regarding revisions to the purchasing manual, and I believe Dustin Clark and Ron Venturella will be on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. It's always tough to follow the good news presentations with potentially more dry business, so we thought we'd give you a fun handout to try to bridge the divide there. Mr. Venturella just passed out a copy of our draft procurement manual, which we'll be talking about, and we've got a presentation for you to queue up. My name is Dustin Clark. I'm with the Buncombe County Finance Department, and with me is Mr. Ron Venturella, who is the procurement manager for Buncombe County. And I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to Mr. Wood for some of his guidance early on in getting us geared in this direction, to our policy review team, who's done a lot of the background work on this, and also to all the departmental staff and directors who I know at this point are very tired of us asking for their feedback and to read really long policies. So thank you to all, and I'm sure we'll probably be back, so sorry in advance. Just to give you the purpose of the presentation today, we're simply here to introduce this manual to you all. This is the first time you've seen it. This is also posted online with the meeting packet. And what this is there's some new policies that we're including, as well as revisions to some existing policies. We've packaged all those together into a draft procurement manual, which is a new shape for that content. And then we're not expecting a vote or anything from you all today. We're just wanting to introduce this to you all and initiate a period of review for you guys to have a chance to produce any questions or give us any feedback, as well as the public at large. We'll take feedback from anyone who wants to provide it for sure. So outline of what we'll talk about, just why policies need to be updated, an overview of our new contracts policy, which we've provided and proposed, an overview of the new procurement policy, and then just talk about the procurement manual a little bit overall. So why do we feel like we need to update policies? Policies are key to the internal control environment. And so we think that having good, strong policies is important to maintaining a good, strong internal control environment. Making these proposed changes in the manual, we feel like improves that environment and also addresses any gaps that we may have identified through just continual evaluation that we're we're always doing. We've also had some major system and management changes since the last time these policies were reviewed and updated. And so now is definitely a good time to take another look at the way we do business in the county. So to start off, we'll talk about the contracts policy. The purpose of this policy is to create a policy and procedure for the creation, execution, evaluation, monitoring, and retention of contracts in the county. This is pretty fundamental stuff. We have not had a county-wide contracts policy, to my knowledge, and this is a gap that I think a few folks have made some strides toward. There's been a lot of work done on this front by other people. We picked up on a lot of prior work. Tim Love and some other folks in the room have worked on this in the past. And so the point is just to have a county-wide policy governing contracts. Some departments have had some policies on their own, but the major points we want to cover here are who has the authority to sign contracts? Are we following that signature authority and monitoring it effectively? What do we require in contracts? And what process must all contracts go through in the county? Once again, fundamentals here, but it was a gap that we felt like we needed to address. So contract signature authority, once again, basics, but contracts may only be signed by authorized employees. That authorization is derived solely from the Board of County Commissioners. The manager may grant written or electronic delegation for certain contracts on a case-by-case basis. And our plan would be for that to happen in writing or in our electronic contract management system. And then delegated authority to sign contracts is dependent on the type of contract and the dollar thresholds of those contracts as established by our procurement policy. There's a contract control process that we establish with this policy, which simply covers who's responsible for following contracts through the process, who needs to be included for review and approval. So that could be legal, like finance for a pre-audit check to make sure the funds are there, risk review to make sure that proper indemnification is applied, and then how contracts should be stored, monitored, amended. One of the issues that we've had is we've been pretty decentralized, and so there's not been a single source or repository for our contracts, which is, trying to get a handle on where your contracts are. It makes it a lot easier if they're all kind of in one place, one system that you can access. So this would require that. And as part of, absolutely.
Okay, so on contract review, I'm interested in where, okay, once a contract is negotiated prior to signing, what's the pre-audit? Does someone in the audit department review that? Is someone independent of the department reviewing that? What's the check and balance on the signature there?
So the pre-audit step on this slide would refer to, by state statute, the finance officer for the county has to basically check and make sure the funds are available and in the budget before we execute any contracts. We can't spend money that we don't have. So that's what this refers to. So as these contracts would be generated by, a department would have a need for a service or a good. They would work with a vendor or supplier to author a contract and then negotiate the terms of the contract. And then that would go through their review for the department. That might be their department director. But also go through the finance department. We get eyes on it and say, yes, the funds are there or not. Legal and risk would also be involved to check and make sure that everything is in order with the contract language. And then, depending on the amount, it would go for signature, and that could come all the way to the board. So the board is the only body in some cases that has the authority to sign, or that could be, if it's a small contract, it could be just the department director.
And so that process is audited, right? You said depending on the dollar amount.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
That's one of the important reasons that we need a policy like this, is because we haven't had a countywide policy. Auditing has been a little bit tricky because there aren't a set of rules by which you try to compare what's happening in the organization. So by adopting a policy like this, then our internal auditors, and I don't want to speak for them, but they would be able to say, okay, here's what the rules are. Now let's look at what's going on in the county and make sure that it's following those rules. In addition to that, Ron Venturella, as procurement manager, is stepping into more of a centralized role in managing and governing the flow of contracts through the county as well. So we would also have responsibility in that procurement department to make sure that everything is in order as these are processed.
So it's safe to say, as a result of the policy, the procurement policy tonight, that puts in place the checks and balances that are needed prior to any contract being signed, and we did not have that previously.
That's my perspective. I believe that's true, and that's why we're proposing this tonight. And we think this is a huge step toward being in line with best practices.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. It's a great job.
Any other questions before we keep going? Thank you. So another big tool in helping us tackle this issue is the contract lifecycle management software, which there was a presentation a few meetings ago that our IT department brought forth talking about this. Implementation is underway. This will take us to one system to manage these contracts and create approval workflows that make auditing much, much easier. And so this is, I think, a huge step forward to being more transparent with our contracting as well, but also making sure that it's following policy. So that takes us out of the contract policy. The whole policy is in the packet. But another big policy in this packet, which is pretty new, is the procurement policy. We had a purchasing policy, so I don't want to imply that we didn't. We kind of reshaped that and made it a little bit more comprehensive, renamed it, and we'll talk about those changes a little bit as well. But the point of this policy is to guide all Buncombe County employees who are responsible for obtaining, apparatus, supplies, services, anything that they need to acquire. This is the guidebook for doing those activities. Talks about roles and responsibilities, standards of conduct, guidance on those purchases by the type of purchase, which can be very different, processes for how we need to bid, how we actually execute those purchases, delivery performance, and how we work with our minority, women, and small business suppliers. So I'm just throwing up a snapshot of where the existing purchasing policy was on the left, and it was fairly dated and meandered through the topics that you might be interested in quite a bit. So the first thing that we did when we looked at this policy was try to reorganize it and simplify it in a way that was a little easier to follow. So we condensed all that content and refreshed it into a structure that we think follows the way people conduct business. So, what do you need to buy? How do you need to buy it? Essentially follow that workflow. So hopefully it's just a lot more usable, because this is something that folks need to be referencing in their daily work. So roles and responsibility with procurement are very important. Historically, our procurement processes have been fairly decentralized, and there are some pros and cons to that approach. We feel like policy changes that we're proposing here increase the role of central administration, which we think can be a better partner in monitoring, while trying to also maintain departmental flexibility. We don't want to cause harm to operations that are going well and have no issue. And then it just outlines that all parties are responsible for ethical conduct, maintaining good supply relations, and ultimately just operating in the best interest of Buncombe County when they're conducting any purchasing or procurement activities. So try to go through this. There's guidance in this policy by the type of purchase. It's broken out this way because this is the way state law refers to purchasing requirements. You see a slide over there on the right. I'm going to jump in and go through each of the 4 categories that the state uses. So first up would be purchases of goods, supplies, materials, and equipment. These are kind of tangible things that you might need to buy. On the left, we have the state's requirements. This is what they mandate. So from $0 to $30,000, the state does not require you to do any bidding, and that means getting quotes or prices. From $30,000 to $90,000, they require an informal bidding process, so like a request for proposals. And then over that dollar threshold, there's a formal bidding process they require. And so we've tried to demonstrate on the right what our policy is requiring. So from $0 to $5,000, still no bidding is required, but authorized staff are allowed to make those authorizations. From $5,000 to $30,000, that requires the county manager or a county manager delegate, which would be typically a department director, to authorize. From 30 to 90, and that same level of authorization. And then from 90 and above, we're adding a notification to the Board of Commissioners. What we'd like to do is provide more information to you all on large purchases that are going on in the county. This could be in any format that you would like. What we would propose is just a simple report out on the consent agenda. That way it's in a publicly accessible area, and it's available to you all in a recurring format. So no action is required, but that information is out there, and we think that helps improve transparency. So moving into the next category, this is construction or repair. These tend to be a little bit bigger project in nature. So we've added over on the right the authorizations for these different dollar thresholds. So once again, over 90,000, that would be included in a board report notifying of any projects over that threshold. And then anything over 500,000 requires the board to actually approve those purchases, which is in keeping with state law. For architects, engineers, surveyors, design and build, or construction managers at risk, the state's pretty wide open on the dollar thresholds. They do require the use of a qualification-based selection process or a request for qualifications. But what we've done is we've added some different levels of approval here outside of what the state has required. So from $0 to $50,000, the state actually allows you to exempt out on the qualification process. So we've kept the authorization at the county manager or delegate level, but for anything over 50,000, we think the board should have maybe some more insight into that. So the board can delegate that if they choose. If they do not choose, then it would require the board to take action on those. And then anything over 90,000, once again, keeping with that $90,000 threshold we've hit on a few times, would require the board to approve in this case.
I have a question. On the 50 to 90, where it's the Board of Commissioners or a delegate, so for a particular, decision to hire someone, either the commission would have to decide, or we would have to, in that particular circumstance, delegate it to the manager or some other appropriate person in the organization.
I think we've left this open, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could do a blanket delegation and say, we aren't interested in doing this, or you could do it case by case, whatever would be the preference of the board. The frequency of those RFQs is not extremely high, but it is a little higher than the $90,000 threshold. So there is the chance that you can become kind of inundated with these, and the board may decide it wants to delegate that authority for a while.
Okay, so we would need to take that question up and figure out how much delegation we want to do or not do.
My suggestion would be to start off being very strict about it.
Turn the mic on.
Is your mic on, George?
My recommendation would be to be very strict about it to start off with and get a feel for how many it is. If it's not too many, keep it with you. What I'm used to doing is only doing it on a case-by-case basis.
Sounds good.
Question on this. Say the landfill, they needed to step up and go spend $50,000 for stuff, and then instead of waiting 2 weeks to come to us, is this tied into that as we're looking at it?
Well, this would be for professional services. If they just needed to buy something, that would be in a different category.
Well, and they can basically, if they need something, they can't go out and purchase it without, $10,000 coming before the board to approve.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I I definitely encourage any department directors who are watching, who haven't weighed in, if you feel like there's a burden that this places on you all, we definitely want to hear that and make sure that we're not causing any harm. But I don't believe that it would in that case.
So to Commissioner Farr's question, is that on the up to 90,000? They'll have the ability to do that on procurement, depending on the department.
Correct. For goods and equipment, correct. They can approve that in the department, and then 90,000, the board will be notified of that purchase or contract.
And let me say this, there is a provision in here, and it's in state law, that if there were an emergency, we could authorize a higher amount on a one-time basis, and then I would report that to you and explain to you why that was an emergency. You can't let people abuse it, which is why you want the manager to have to sign off for it.
And the final fourth category here would be services, and the state, that's basically everything that's not covered in the first three categories. Once again, the state, pretty wide open here, no real thresholds defined, no bidding requirements for services contracts. So we want to try to add a little structure to that. So from 0 to 5,000, staff have the ability to try to authorize those transactions. From 5 to 90, county manager or delegate of the county manager has the authorization. And we're not requiring any bidding on those contracts. But for 90 or above, a little bit of a change here. We would like to strongly encourage requests for proposals for things over that dollar amount. That's a fairly significant dollar amount. There are cases where a request for proposal, getting prices for those contracts as a requirement doesn't make sense. A lot of human services contracts, the continuum of service is paramount, and trying to get an RFP doesn't really yield any benefit. So there are some exceptions to that. So what we're asking for is for an RFP to be used for contracts over that amount, unless there's a good reason not to, and in that case, let's provide the reason for why we didn't do that, and that's sufficient. And then sticking with the $90,000 threshold, there's a theme here. Anything over $90,000 will be coming to the board just as an information item. So that concludes the procurement policy. There's a lot more content in there, but I didn't want to go through all of it at the time we have. So this brings us to the procurement manual, which is a little bit new. This is taking all procurement-related policies and putting them into a single document. Reasons for doing that is it just makes it easier to train folks on what these policies are. It makes it easier to access these. So if I want to share these policies with you or the public, it's one place to point folks as opposed to several. It also makes them easier to use. This can be a desk reference or a shortcut on someone's computer, as opposed to 6 or 7 policies that folks have to navigate through. So this manual includes the two we just talked about, contracts and procurement, along with some other policies we've already talked about this year, procurement cards, meals and meetings, travel, in addition to a surplus property policy that we also have, which are usually grouped into procurement. And then another really important component of this manual is we would like for this to be adopted by the board. And so this is an introduction to this manual, and I'd like to kick off a period of time where we have a chance to review and form some questions, but ultimately we want to be coming back to you all to adopt this manual as official county policy. And so that's our next steps. We've introduced the manual. We'll take any questions you have at this moment, but we'll be looking for feedback. We'll incorporate that feedback and make any updates that comes out of it, and then come back to you all for adoption. And purchasing at buncombecounty.org is an email address that you or anyone can use. And I think Ron and myself will be available one-on-one if you have any questions or you'd like to talk about the details. We're definitely around, so we look forward to that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a couple of comments. I think y'all can see what we're trying to do is have a consistent policy across all departments. The other thing is, it's very important to stress that we want you to adopt it because we want it made perfectly clear. This is not an administrative policy done by the county manager. This is done by you, and nobody can change it without a vote of the board. So these rules and regulations will stay in place, and everybody goes by them, from the board to the county manager and everybody on down. They apply to everybody that's in Clark County.
Great. Questions?
Great job.
Yeah, great job. So I just have just maybe one question on the, well, just as a framework on this, essentially we're required to follow state law in purchasing policies. So we can't do anything that's not, that's more flexible than what the state allows, but we can make it more, we can require more, make it more stringent than the state, which is not less, right? So they set forth minimum criteria for approving contracts of various kinds.
That's
So we can have them be more stringent, it's not less, right?
So if you want lower thresholds on something, you can do that.
Right. Okay. And specifically on the architects, engineers, surveyors, construction manager at risk, that's one area where this North Carolina general statute is actually provides a great deal of flexibility, right? It's basically, you don't have to bid it, you can choose it based on qualifications, and it's uncapped. So that's an area where there's not a lot of direction from the state about how to do that. It's one of the more open-ended areas, is that right?
Can you bring that slide back up while we're
Well, it is to a degree, but as you get into the details of the different types of construction processes and all, the CMAR process, construction manager at risk process, is actually spelled out in pretty good detail in the state. But you are right as far as the thresholds and everything. But the process itself is very detailed, and you have to go exactly by that. And the thing I would stress to the board is, and it has it in here, is anytime we would use that process, it comes back to the board for approval. And any architectural services for any sizable project is going to be coming back to you for approval.
I mean, I like the recommendation you got a lot, but I'm just in terms of looking at what your recommendation is and what the North Carolina general statute is, which doesn't ever require commission approval. I mean, that's the situation where the Wiseman contract just kind of went on, and it was never state law never required a contract like that to be approved by the board because it falls into this category.
Yeah,
Is that right?
because what they did there was more or less a multi-year contract. We have that with the successor to that. But we have to come to you with every new task under that project. And we will come to you with every task. In fact, we came to you with the ones for $700.
Yeah.
Because I want y'all to know every time we enter into a contract on something like
But one question, $4,700, Dane's here. That's actually no money. If you're talking $25,000 or $50,000, that's money. If $4,700 gets the work done the next day instead of waiting 2 weeks on us to approve it, that kind of money, we got to find a true number.
that. Well, it depends on how much of a rush there is on it. If there's not a rush, I think we ought to bring it to you.
At least for, consent agenda, at least some way to, share the information.
But we're not going to let it interrupt his work, something like that.
And I think what's important about this is the fact that the commission adopts it. And when, I'm no longer here, or whoever else is no longer here, and somebody wants to change that, they gotta come back in this chamber and vote on it in front of everybody. And that's what I really like about it. And I think the 90,000 is fair, and, we may cry, as Commissioner Fryer is stating, we may cry uncle on a couple of things, and maybe up to a little level and want to tweak it, but it's a really good job. And it puts that safeguard in place that the public wants and expects and should have.
Yeah, and the one other comment I would make on this is you're always going to have some natural tension between operating departments and finance and purchasing. Because an operating department wants to get the job done. And they want to go buy the part yesterday. You know, and so to a lot of people that are in a rush on that, all of this is a nuisance. But you've got to have these in order to make sure you follow state law and that you have a clear policy on how you want things done, so that we aren't just out there, everybody doing their own thing. And so, but that's not to say you aren't going to hear a little bit of blowback occasionally, because that's just a natural, I won't say animosity, but natural tension between the two, because they have a little bit of different mindset.
All right, so when do you anticipate this coming back to the board for a vote?
I'll look to Mr. Wood for guidance there. I think we would be ready as soon as you feel like you've had an adequate period to review. I don't know what's too soon.
Why don't we schedule it for November 20th, because it's only 2 weeks till the October 30th meeting. And we want you to read through this thoroughly and make sure if you've got any questions, we'd like to go back through it and make sure, and then we could put it on November 20th and we'd be ready to go. Because our departments have looked at it, they've reviewed it very thoroughly and have been asked to comment on it.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good, Mr. Wood. All
I
right,
agree
thank you,
with that.
gentlemen.
I would like to
very
hear
much.
the comments from the departments.
Well, they would have them. They'll have their comments.
It's okay. Thank you.
But I got a little more to learn about this.
All right, Mr. Wood, any other county manager updates?
The one thing I did want to tell you is that yesterday I hired Aldo Jerome as our new communications director. I think he's in the back there. And as y'all know, he already works in our communications department. But we had 4 finalists for that, all within the department. We interviewed all of them, Margaret and I did last week. We're pleased to have selected Aldo. I think he'll do a great job for us.
Congratulations, Cavaldo.
Thank you for your work. Great work. And with that, I believe we've filled all of the vacant positions at this point. We had a flurry of hiring last week and the week before, so unless Jim's aware of something I'm not, I think we've filled all of our key slots, with one exception of the county manager. And of course, y'all had your meeting with Mr. Slavin last week. I thought that went very well. He did email me the advertisement yesterday, late yesterday, asked me to review it, and he wanted to get it out today. I've done that, signed off on it, so it should be out there very shortly.
Very good. Okay, we come to old business. The first item is a, yes, ma'am. I skipped it, thank you very much. Catch, I went over that. We do need to hold a proposed hearing on the proposed FY 2020 annual section 5311 administrative and capital grant applications to be submitted to the North Carolina Department of Transportation for mountain mobility. And Matt Cable will present this item. Matt, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you again for the opportunity to present the information on our annual application for these funds. The required public hearing and the resolution that you receive in your materials are part of our annual application. These are applications that we make to the North Carolina Department of Transportation for state and federal funds that are used to support the administrative and capital functions of mountain mobility, which is Buncombe County's community transportation system. Mountain mobility, for those who may not be aware, in the public, serves senior adults, persons with disabilities, clients of human services agencies, and the general public through both demand responsive services, that's our door-to-door service, as well as deviated fixed route services. There is included in the materials you received a summary of the grant application, which details the amount of state and federal funds which are being applied for and the local match that is required. For the administrative grant, it's a total of 85% federal and state funds combined with a 15% match. The local match being just over $56,000 for a total fund or grant funding of $321,000 for those funds. The funds are used to support a number of things, including administrative staff and contract costs, employee development and training costs associated with mountain mobility vehicle operators, drug and alcohol testing for the vehicle operators, vehicle insurance, technology, facility costs, etc. Under the combined capital grant, this is an 80% federal and 10% state fund with 10% local match required. This is for a single vehicle replacement in the fiscal year 2020, as well as replacement of 2 mobile radio units. The state sets when our vehicles are actually eligible for application for funding, as well as our radio units that are funded through the grant, and those are that are eligible in this fiscal year. We also included a copy of the notice of public hearing so that the citizens did receive proper notice as required by the grant funding application. Certainly would be happy to answer any questions you have following the public hearing as well.
All right, thanks, Matt. Let's go ahead and hold the public hearing on this item. I'll open the public hearing at 6:03. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? Mr. Yeldon.
I have a very simple mind, and that befuddles people sometimes. I've asked for this before, I'll ask for it again. I know mountain mobility serves a purpose. I'd like to see the routes they run and the number of people on each route based upon weekly usage, which would give you your annual transportation. And I'd like to know that so we would know what we are filling and the gap we're filling. If it's available somewhere, please let me know. If it's not, then it should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Don't see anybody else. We're going to close the public hearing at 6:04. Is there a motion or any questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Jasmine. Slight delay, but we came to that.
She's louder than anybody.
Okay, all right, thanks, Matt. All right, now we come to consideration of the annual sale annual leave policy. This is an item we discussed in our last commission meeting. We wanted some additional information. So Kurt Mueller is here to provide a little bit of additional information, and before we decide what the commission policy will be going forward.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here to present you with some additional information that you all requested from last meeting. If I could get those PowerPoint slides up. So first thing I kind of wanted to do is wanted to just give you a brief history. In 2010, that's when we first started having significant leave sales. You could see that for people under 10 years of service, there was that you could convert up to 5 days, and people over 10 years could convert up to 15 days. That was amended in August of 2012, where you could convert up to 3 weeks in 5-day increments, but you must take 5 days off. And then finally, then you see in 2015, it was amended again to where you could convert any increment in balance of 8 hours, but you would have to take 5 days off. So there was, in most of these, there's a requirement that you had to take 5 days off. And then July 1st, 2016, you could convert as much as you want in increments of 8 hours, and you had no requirement to take any time off. So that's sort of where we're at right now. So I wanted to give you all ideas to how much was being spent. Average cost is about per year, over a 5-year average is 1.46.
If you take out the highest leave seller, that average goes down to about $1.4 million a year. As you can see, for 2017 and 18 so far, we've been pretty consistent. So the questions you all asked is how much money, I think Commissioner Whitesides asked, how much money would we save if we totally did away with annual leave sales? In terms of an immediate amount, that would be about $1.4 million. That would loan. But also I want to make a point that the county is obligated to pay people for their annual leave. So when they leave the county is going to have to pay that. So that may be a deferred cost later on down the road, but the county is obligated to pay people for their annual leave. But in terms of just people just selling it, that would be a $1.4 million savings. As we've said to you before, if we sold up to 50, or allowed people to sell up to 40 hours, which would be 5 days, the savings to the county would be about $370,000. Then if we allowed people to sell up to 80 hours, which was asked by Commissioner Belchers, there would be no savings. If everybody who could sell 80 hours actually sold the 80 hours, we calculated that to be about $1.9 million, but we think that we'd be keeping with the average and spending about $1.4 million a year.
Can you go back to, when you said we're obligated to pay it when people
Sure.
leave? Can you?
Sure. Well, basically, annual leave is an incurred liability, so that when we leave, there's a cap as to how much we will buy back. So basically, everybody, let's say that if you've been here since 2002, you can accrue up to 27 days a year. So the maximum amount that the county would pay you out would be 54 days when you either separated or when you retired from service. Okay?
Kurt, if you would, explain what happens when they cap that.
When they cap that.
As
So
far as being converted over.
That's the leave cap. So we have a cap in the personnel ordinance that allows people to accrue basically twice what their accrual rate is. So you can keep that in a bank. But then on February 1st, if you exceed that cap, any excess annual leave gets rolled over and converted to sick leave. Okay, so you can only have this maximum cap amount. And so that's basically what your maximum liability should be per every employee.
And if you would, explain what happens with the sick leave and calculating retirement.
Okay, so sick leave is something that you cannot sell, but when you leave service or when you retire from government, your sick leave counts as actual service. So if you have 8 months of sick leave banked, you can actually, that gives you 8 months more of service that's used in calculating what your retirement would be.
And are those policy issues things that the commission could consider adjusting, or are those things that really, at least for the existing employees, could not be changed?
Well, the retirement, as far as converting it to retirement and counting toward retirement, that's the state retirement system, so you could not change that.
But that is
But also like looking at the number of days that you could sell a vacation day that you haven't taken, like.
You can change that anytime.
We could, that's within our discretion. Okay.
right, and any change would be part of the personnel policy.
So you're saying the way it is now, it's a maximum of 54 days that they can bank, did I hear right?
That would be the person who's been here the longest with, right, that would be the worst case scenario, but a lot of it depends on when you were hired and how many years you've been with the county, or in the case of how much time you have with local government service. Because if you remember last October, we basically put in a policy that allowed people who, let's say, worked at the city for 4 years to get that credit so they could have more annual leave. So when you hired as a way to attract people, that you would get credit for that. And so we have a lot of that going on.
I think it's great the way that builds up into the health benefits, for medical leave. Because if you've got a long-term employee who has a serious illness, I mean, they have to leave that. I'm fine with all of that, but I still go back to what I said before, and now more so, is when I look at selling back the annual leave and that $1.4 million. The problem I have with that is you're paying people twice for their vacation. Let's face it. And everybody needs to take the vacation and needs to take the time off to be with their families. That's why we have vacation. But this paying double, we've got a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers, folks. And I want to be fair, and already, if you take this away, we have probably, when you look at our package of benefits for our employees, we stack up probably, if not the best, one of the best in the state of the 100 counties. So it's not like that we're taking a whole lot away. And you look at what we have with insurance, COLA, we have the benefits. But to me, I just have a problem with selling back the vacation and what it's costing us.
Other questions or comments from commissioners? Or motion?
So explain what you're saying about they're getting paid twice.
Well, okay, if I have 4 weeks vacation,
Right.
I work that 4 weeks, and I'm selling back 4 weeks, you paying me for working, and, that's what I mean by it. Yeah. I'll go back to what I said before, I'd like to move that we take it away. And we pay them from that, the employees get their regular vacation.
I'll second it. And I'll say, all of these discussions around benefits, we've had a number of, policy issues on our agenda the last couple of months around these issues, and none of them are easy. We really just want to, say over and over again how much we value our employees. It's what makes this whole organization run. So making any changes that are less favorable, it's never a fun topic. This is a nice benefit to have. But when we were talking about the health benefits, one of our county employees came in and said, I'd much rather you change the paid vacation day policy rather than reducing health benefits. And that really stuck with me. And I think we're going to have other there's always tough decisions in every budget process, every benefits discussion policy. But this is just of the different things we've talked about. Whether we assure our public employees are going to get a cost of living adjustment, which is not a pay raise. It just means you're not making less money each year. It just means we're keeping you where you're at now based on inflation. Reducing that or not making sure that's there's some certainty on that. Changes to health policy. This is, I think this is a really nice policy, but it's I'd much rather look to this than health changes or pay raises for.
When would it go into effect? What if employees have already?
You can decide any date you want.
I'm just saying, if we were to do this, then I'm on
It would make sense to do it January 1st on the calendar year, if you're looking at vacation. Well, budget.
It's whatever you want to do.
We could, say it's immediate, or we could kind of let the existing policy carry through the end of this year, so that if people have made certain plans in the short term, we wouldn't be pulling the rug out from under them, so to speak. So we could make it go into effect at the beginning of the next fiscal year, and that would be one option.
So I had, last time we were together, I'd suggested 2 weeks. The reason I did that is because we were going from unlimited to 2 weeks. After seeing the numbers, my position has changed some. I'm not at the same position that the first of the motion. I'm at the position of a week. And the reason I'm there is because it is a reduction. It is a move in the right direction, but it also protects those that do use that money for, on the lower end of the pay scale, for emergencies or for Christmas or for various things. And I've heard input about that. So I do think, as Commissioner Whiteside said, I do wish people, when they have vacation, they would take vacation. However, we've had this policy in place for a long time. And I think if we move in the direction of trying to, and I get the cost, I get reducing the cost, but to me, moving to zero is too quick. Moving to a week, I would support that. And I would support that. I support that at any time. Moving to a week.
Great. To follow up, I heard a story of a county employee whose husband had some sort of traumatic surgery, and they used this to pay the mortgage on their house.
Yeah, I mean, and that it's not, they still have sick days, but they have expenses that come up. And again, I don't want to take the actions and abuse of a few, and penalize many. However, it is good policy to look at these dollars, I think, and to move from unlimited, to something. I just can't move all the way to zero. I couldn't move to a week. And I know that, $300, $400, $500, $600, whatever a week is, what's not that, is a lot of money. And I'm not trying to put my other colleagues in a position that they don't care about that money. I know that they do care about the team members, but I think it's a more practical move to go to a week. So that's going to be my position tonight.
You mentioned one thing, Commissioner Belcher. If we are concerned about the people at the low end of the pay grade, we need to address that. I don't think it's fair to address the people at the low end of the pay grade where they have to sell that vacation. I mean, we need to adjust our salary. We're talking about two issues here. And one, I do believe in, and I believed in that the whole time I was working. The people who work for me will tell you that. I believe in people being paid for what they do. And I believe in giving them, a wage that they can live in Buncombe County. But, I think to do it, I hear what you're saying, but to do it this way, we're skirting the issue, folks. We need to deal with their pay if we want to help the people at the lower end of the pay scale. We need to be fair with them, but I don't want to be, this is not the right way to do it.
Well, the other thing too you can look at is you don't have to do everything overnight. I mean, if in the future we decide to do something different, we can do something different. But I'm still of the opinion that it's again no reflection on my colleague, but I still believe that we're making a move, and I think that's a fair move, and I think it's a substantial move, particularly to those that are affected by it. And it does say.
Let's hear from other commissioners. Let's go from the other.
I agree with Commissioner Belcher, but Commissioner Frost brought up a point that I've had 4 or 5 employees bring to me. I think we've got to look at, and how we do it, I don't know. I think that's where the board needs to talk about this, is in case of emergency, medical issues, whenever our lower paid actually could come before us and say, I have got to sell this to keep my house or to keep groceries or keep medicine. I think moving it from where it is now to zero is just too big of a gap right now. But I need help in knowing how we could fix it. That they might have to be, something, an exception put in there for emergency, major medical emergencies.
I'll tell you how some jobs do it. I've seen it, and we had that at one point at First Union, where we had a fund that was set up for major emergencies. If, you know, if employees had that, they could apply to that fund. And we had stipulations, you know, you could only do it one time, and so, you know, time and all. But we set that up to help out.
Here's the thing, we know we have sheriff's deputies who make less than the median income in Buncombe County. They have some of the most dangerous jobs. So, to Commissioner Whiteside's point, you know, what are we doing talking about, you know, whether they get a week or of being able to sell this leave, but we're ignoring the fact that the salaries are too low. The people we put most in danger who are gonna have health issues, potential health issues, are getting paid less than the average of Buncombe County. So, you know, I guess it's two different things, but it's.
All right, I want to ask if any commissioners haven't spoken on the item, wish to speak now, we will take public comment on the motion as well. Commissioner Beach-Farrar, do you have any comments or questions?
I'll be brief just because I'm in a noisy environment. I hope you can hear me okay. I just think it's important for us to be precise about which tools we use and would appreciate Commissioner Whiteside's analysis around, you know, if we're concerned about income, we should assess income based on the salary study. So based on what I'm hearing and thinking, I would support the motion that's on the table.
Mr. Fryer,
Well, I understand it in a way. 1 week, I understand basically what it's talking about, right? You know, having money in a fund to try to help the employees. Commissioner Frost basically said it right. We have sheriff's deputies working for penance, and then we have other people working double their money, double for that. And that's in Buncombe County. And, you know, the protectors is the one I look at that we need to try to look at more than we do in other areas. And we don't seem to do that. We haven't done it. And, you know, I know people that's been hurt on the jobs here that are retired now, that are young people that even on the insurance side, they get just a little bit of money, but they do have their insurance. But vacations, 1 week I guess would be good to keep and we'll be able to sell back, and you know, but you got to be able to get to 2 to 3 weeks to ever come up with any money. So how do we do that for the new people and the young people in here? As far as the health side, they're in good shape. As we get older, that's when we start getting a little rough in that area. So, you know, and you will have problems as young people too, you know, but it's not going to be things like it would be for older people. And I still want to study this a little deeper. I mean, I'm sorry, I want to study it a little deeper.
Do you have any thing on who has been, or where's the big dollars from? Is it the people that's got 4 or 5 weeks of vacation build up, or higher salaries that's using this, or is it the middle or the lowest paid?
It's really across the board. I think most of it depends on years of service, that you'll find that people who have been with the county longer have more, unless they're a use it and a burn it type situation. Most of it is the people who have been here longer have more of the luxury to sell the annually than the people who really don't have who haven't banked enough time yet. So it's really the longer term employees, and in a lot of cases, those tend to be also your higher salary employees because they've been here longer.
So you don't have no number on that? I mean, or, because that's what I'm looking at, is maybe it is our long-term people's been here and our highest paid, and do something in that area, you know, could probably cut that $500,000, $750,000, right?
in terms of limiting it to a certain salary or a certain dollar amount as to who can sell and who can't?
Yes.
That would, because you would be setting a cap as to who can sell. I don't know whether, from an equity standpoint, whether, you know, it's okay for lower, but that's your call.
I think, I agree with what you're saying, everybody should take a vacation, but I also do know that a lot of the folks we're talking about have 2 jobs. You know, they work for sheriff's deputies. Yeah, I keep talking about sheriff's deputies, but looking at the people who fall below the average, they frequently have second jobs. So taking a vacation is out of their realm, and I can't get, as much as I appreciate them, I can't get my head wrapped around this right now.
Right, let's,
Can I-
go ahead, and then let's take public comment.
That'd be fine. What is the most weeks that we have any employee vacation? Were we at 5, 6 weeks?
27 days would be the most, so that would be 5 weeks and 2 days.
All right, we're gonna take public comment on the motion. Any members of the public who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Laura Brower. I just wanted to share with you that I did work for a government organization before that had a really great sick sharing program where people could donate extra sick leave, and there may be something similar on the end of vacation leave that you could consider as part of that community fund.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, Mr. Yellen.
Greatest entertainment in Asheville. Not bad. You could take 1 + 1 and discuss it all night and come up with 5. I think you need to look at some simple solutions, i.e. limit the amount of vacation that they can keep. Roll it over into medical leave. And that way, they can take that medical leave for a true medical condition. And if I'm not mistaken, if someone gets hurt on the job, don't they have some type of insurance that you all pay for? So they get that if they need it. So let them build up medical leave that is required to be taken if there's a true medical need. Now, if you want to address the issue of those at the top that's getting 5 weeks a year plus 2 days, then you could limit the number of weeks that they can carry over, which would affect that. You could also say you can't carry but 1 week over. And that treats everybody the same. It also looks after people and might give you the money down the road to address the real issue that the COLA does not address. You sit right here and discuss it. Who does the COLA benefit, folks? The top. And when it's election year, there ain't nobody got the cojones to say, let's cut the top. So if you really want to address those at the bottom, you'll do it through the COLA, and you got till next year to figure it out. This benefit thing on vacation, I suggest you go back to that room back there, and you all look at it again, and you ask him where all this coming from, and you come up with a proposal that lets them build up sick leave that can only be used if they really need it. Because you're already paying for an insurance that gives them money if they get hurt on the job. So you are addressing the issue. And you're saving your money down the road to help take care of those at the bottom of the totem pole. Very simple, very common. Make 1 + 1 = 2.
All right, anybody else? All right, we'll bring this back to the board. The motion is to discontinue being able to sell paid leave. And there's been a good discussion about It sounds like everyone's in favor of changing the existing policy down to a lower number of days. So,
Can I make a motion to amend, can I make an amendment to the motion?
you can try.
All right, I'll take a shot at it. I'd like to amend my colleague's motion to allow 1 week instead of 0.
So the motion is to, the original motion is to just not have it. The proposal is to take it to 1 week. Is there a second to the proposed amendment?
I would second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I don't think it's really a friendly amendment. Why don't we just vote on the proposed amendment? See if it passes, then it'll be adopted, that we're reducing it from the status quo to 1 week rather than to the number 0. We're gonna vote on the proposed motion, which is to make it 1 week, to change it from the current policy to 1 week.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yes, sir.
just a point of order. The original recommendation, and Margaret Ellis was pretty adamant about wanting to put this in, was that someone would have to keep at least 40 hours. In other words, they wouldn't sell everything they've got.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
She's saying to keep at least 40 hours in reserve at all times. And that goes back to in case you need it for something.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is to have it be 1 week, to allow only up to 1 week of being sold. Well, if you agreed to it, then it would be considered a friendly amendment, and it would actually become the motion.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
don't,
but you still have to vote, even friendly amendments need to be accepted and voted.
so, yeah.
So right now, what you're doing is voting on the amendment. If the amendment carries,
It'll
then the
become-
motion
Yeah,
changes.
that's right. So we don't, if it's got a second, a motion and a second to amend, then that deserves to be voted on.
So, but Al could pull his, right?
He can vote for this or not.
I think the motion to amend is now the motion that's on the floor.
That's right.
So we're gonna act on that. Any discussion on the motion to amend, to make it 1 week? So I'm glad we're making the change. I would just note that this discussion didn't just come out of the blue. This was actually put forward as part of a package of, pretty extensive changes, negative changes to the county's health plan. This was considered at the same time, so we didn't just kind of take this up out of the blue. It was kind of looking at a series of changes. And again, I don't like the idea of reducing the benefit at all, but compared to the things that we were looking at in terms of reducing folks' healthcare policies, I find this far more attractive. And it really only saves a substantial amount of money if we just get rid of the thing. If we keep it at a week, we're really not saving much money, which brings us back to the other ways we can tighten our belts as an organization, which I think are a lot less attractive. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against the motion to amend.
It's 400,000 though, the savings.
The savings are 1.4 million. And we're the only, there's only one other county in our peer group that does this at all. We are the outlier that this program exists at all,
But it does say 400,000.
compared to 1.4 million.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, 4.
Any other comments before we vote? All right, all in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
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 Okay, the motion to amend passes 4-3. So it now becomes the main motion to take it to 1 week. Any further discussion on what is now the main motion to limit it to 1 week? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right. It passes 5-2. All right, thanks, everyone. A good discussion. Bueller, for follow-up information on this. Okay, the next item is on the agenda has been moved to new business, so let's start working through our new business items. The first of which is a motion to approve a resolution to amend the Land of Sky Lester Crossing option list. And Brandon Freeman will present this item.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is something that's been in the works for a while. We initially leased this space to the Land of Sky Regional Council, I believe in 2007, 2008. In 2015 or so, there was an amendment made to that lease, and we entered into negotiations to determine what the monetary rate change would be, as certain spaces were changed. That took a little while longer than we expected, and here we are 3 years later, but we have an amendment that I think will work. In short, the county is going to be reimbursed for the prior 3 years where we have not been paid, and the rate will be an amount that accurately reflects the amount of space used by the lenders. I can answer any further questions, but it's pretty much as simple as that.
All right. Any questions or motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on the proposed motion? Mr. Young?
I'm sorry, I'm worse than Jerry. Jerry, welcome back. You're gonna have to help me out. That's the problem when you read the agenda. From reading that agenda, and you know, they're not supposed to take questions from me, but since he's staff, maybe he will. It looks like this agreement was sealed a long time ago, really. You were kind of captured in an agreement as far as renting and leasing and so forth down the road. And what I got out of that is basically they're going to buy it back they can at the end of so many years if they want to.
Just go ahead and finish your statement, and we'll...
Well, I'd like to get that addressed, because I thought that's what it was, because I saw 2 different amendments in there, and one was an extension of the other. And then the last one basically said something about at the end of a certain number of time, they could buy it back. And it looked like to me that they were giving us the rent money, and then we were going to give it back to them. So basically, we are financing it for them over 20 years at a certain amount a month. And that's what I'm trying to get a handle on.
Any other members of the public who wish to comment on the item? Mr. Freeman, do you want to just share a little bit more information about the financing and the arrangement on the
Sure.
property?
That's the original agreement that was reached in 2008, and it involved a lease with an option to purchase. And so the rental payments that are being made, and this is the way the agreement was set up since 2008, is those payments could be attributed to a purchase price at the end of a 30-year term. That part of the agreement has not changed. This is just an amendment to that 2008 lease because they aren't renting as much space as they initially were renting in 2008.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion to approve. Any other discussion or questions for the board? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, next up is a motion to adopt a resolution to appoint Donald Warren as the finance director. And Michael Frew is not here this evening, correct? I've got Michael listed as presenting this, but he's not with us. So
You have the resolution.
we do. So I'll just say something. We've interviewed people for the finance director position. We got. Mr. Joyner, how many applications did we get for this position? Do you recall ballpark?
I do not know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we got a lot of great candidates. I would think it's fair to say. Thought we had a good process to narrow it down. We had kind of an ad hoc subcommittee of commissioners who reviewed the applications with our county manager and Eric from our finance staff to pool of candidates they thought were the strongest and most qualified. And then we did interviews with those candidates, and we had a number of really great people to choose from. But Mr. Donald Ward, I think, stood out as a great option. extensive experience in local government, financial planning and management, and so we're excited about the opportunity to bring him into this really important position in the organization. So is there a motion to adopt a resolution appointing Donald Warren as the finance director?
Second.
Any members of the public who wish to comment on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. And Mr. Wood, when do we anticipate Mr. Warren will be starting the position? He's moving here from
He's
Colorado.
moving here from Colorado, and he'll start November 13th, which I might add is the same date that the new library director will also start.
So I meant to mention this before, but it's my understanding that he took a pay cut to come here. Is that right? Yeah, it was late. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. It's a little less than what it was before. So, but the pay is reasonable, and we're really excited about it. There was two. It was down to two finalists, and we all pretty much agreed. And then there was a health issue with the other one, and then that person was withdrew. But these were the top two candidates. I think everybody. I think it was unanimous. So.
All right. We've got about 6 other items under new business. How about we take a 5-minute break, and then we'll take the next item on the agenda. Take a 5-minute break.
You can stretch out, but they're a whole lot easier.
There's going to be a public input session on which one Steve. And so they said actually, or Julie said, she wouldn't come, but she didn't want to recycle input. And so there's this, but so we should be able your non-operating vehicle and your application description. Your first time granted.
You're, as a firm, seeking for So if you look at, in the guidance, it
Today's her first day back. She's been in
we've asked for it. Julie's still waiting. Their
with some of the like strategic partnership agreements, but he's used to central administration. We're going to on this thing and take that and this one. I think that was
We're not giving it any.
Jasmine, we're about to resume.
live on the hill,
Paul, please, Aurora, can you continue to hear us okay?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay, great. All right, let's call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution to, for the county manager to execute the Mountain Community Capital Fund Agreement and release funds from the associated deposit note. And I believe Tim Love is going to start us off on this item.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. As we wait for the slides to populate, I want to go ahead and set the stage. This evening, we're talking about the Mountain Community Capital Fund. I'll lead us off with the presentation, but also we'll be hearing from Rachel Nydar, Strategic Partnerships Director. We also have our community partners with us today as well. In the room, we have Jane Hatley from Self-Help. We also have Patrick Fitzsimmons from Mountain BizWorks. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll get deeper. So our partners in the room, we have Jane Hatley from Self-Help, Patrick Fitzsimmons from Mountain BizWorks. Also in the room, we have Sam Powers, who represents the City of Asheville Economic Development. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. The Mountain Community Capital Fund, we've provided to you in your board packet a memo that provides an overview of the program. In addition, there's a resolution as well as an agreement that we're asking you to approve the county manager to execute today. To facilitate that discussion and to make it easier for the folks in the audience, we prepared a presentation which I'll walk us through now. So our request today, we're requesting that the Board of County Commissioners authorize the county manager to execute the allocation of services and duties agreement. In addition, we're asking that you release funding that was previously allocated by the board in October of 2017 at your regular board meeting. In terms of the Mountain Community Capital Fund and what that's all about, this is a loan loss reserve program, and it's designed to help small businesses, and particularly minority-owned businesses, access loans by extending the reach of what are called CDFIs. CDFIs are Community Development Financial Institutions. We have two of them in the room today with us, Self-Help and Mountain BizWorks. This is a partnership. I've already indicated that, but wanted to be clear. This is work with the city. Sam Powers is representing us today, as well as three of the CDFIs, the two that I've mentioned and one that's not with us today, the Carolina Small Business Development Fund. This program is modeled on other programs, namely the one in Charlotte that we will mention later today. It also complements existing programs, so we're not totally recreating the wheel. Programs such as those instituted by the Small Business Administration, as well as USDA. Talking about the program at a high level, some of the key components here for you. When we talk about the loans that will be administered by this fund, we're talking about small loans. So these are going to range anywhere from $10,000 to $70,000, with the average estimated loan being about $30,000. In terms of loan term, the length of the term is between 5 and 7 years, so not particularly lengthy. In terms of success rate, we're estimating a 95% success rate. So that means that we're anticipating some default, but that being in the 5% range. That is a conservative number that is modeled based on some of the work we've seen with other similar programs. This is a key point, loan administration, just to understand the roles and responsibilities. So we're not suggesting that the city or the county in this case get into the business of underwriting loans, administering loans, tracking loans, reporting on loans. We are simply suggesting that we create a loan guarantee fund and allow the CDFIs to do their work. So Mountain BizWorks, Self-Help would continue to do the underwriting as they normally would with any loan that would come in their door. Final piece is the loan program requires participation in a technical assistance program. And so what this means, this is basically training for those that are participating in the program to build business competency, basically to make them more successful in the program and long-term as business owners. So, how does a loan loss reserve work? I've described this to you at a high level, but we'll get into the details at this point. So, the purpose of the loan loss reserve is to mitigate the CDFI risk. So, to allow CDFIs to loan to sort of recipients that they maybe normally wouldn't. The way that you do that is through the creation of a loan guarantee fund. And this loan guarantee fund is accessed only at the time of lender loss. And so an example of what a lender loss would look like is provided on the screen today. So our example is that we have a loan recipient who receives a $30,000 loan from a CDFI. The loan recipient pays off $15,000 of that $30,000 loan, leaving a balance of $15,000. Let's assume at that point that this loan recipient would default on the remaining $15,000. At that point, we begin to talk about eligible loss. And so the way this would work is if there's any collateral that was put up to secure the loan, so equipment, that would be liquidated first to reduce the balance, the remaining balance.
Tim, a question on that. How do we know that that will happen? That they're actually gonna try to recover, sell assets, whatever? How do we know that that's gonna happen before we step in and fund the loss?
Absolutely. So that is built into our allocation of duties and services agreement, which is the agreement that we're asking you to allow the county manager to execute today. So that is a specific stipulation to liquidate collateral associated with the loan.
So they would have to prove that prior to any money
Correct.
in? Okay.
So once we've gone through the business of liquidating collateral, getting a new balance, the CDFI would then apply to the Mountain Community Capital Fund for the remaining balance, whatever it is. In this case, we're going to go with $15,000. And when they apply, the Mountain Community Capital Fund would have the ability to approve or reject that reimbursement request. However, the reimbursement request is capped. So in this case, we're talking about an 85% cap. So whereas you had a $15,000 remaining balance, you can only request 85% of it. The remaining balance is $12,750, and that's what the request would be. That would be reviewed by the Mountain Community Capital Fund and ultimately approved or rejected. That's a very quick example, but I think a pertinent one because it is an example of an average loan that we would expect to see in the program. And so, are there any questions on that?
I have another one. So how will we measure this to see that it's being followed properly, effective? Will it be, what kind of reporting back to the commission will we have on the program?
It's an excellent question. We are, of course, will report at whatever frequency you'd like, Commissioner, but what our friends and partners at the city have offered to do, I believe, Sam, is a quarterly report out on the program, and that's something that we could certainly relax or increase depending on your request.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the program, how it's sort of structured, technical pieces?
Well, one thing I had to say, and I said it earlier today, Griswold came in here 3 or 4 years ago and it broke. We bailed them out. So now we're doubling down and going to put $200,000 into the account in case something happens with any of these companies. There has to be a point that people have to make, BizWorks can carry their own loans to a point. They tried something different, they hurt themselves, and then they came before us and we gave them money. Other people give money, but it's time for the county to quit giving money. There's too many, there's a lot of good nonprofits, but this here is something that I went in business 30-some years ago. Not educated, but I made it in business. You have to have one. We don't know where the money's going, who it's going to. If it's going to stores or going to artists, or we haven't got a clue where the money's going. And I can't give the people's money my age that are making payments on their property tax to do something like this. So we need to back up, look, quit figuring out how to put more nonprofits and take more money from the county. And it's on $200,000. Is it a lot? To a lot of people, it's a whole lot. But I will not be, until I figure out where the money's going, I'm not going to be for it in any way, shape, or form. So you can vote on it tonight, or you can put it off and give us an idea of what they do with the money and where it goes to.
Thank you, Commissioner. What I would say, I don't have slides for this, but there are 2 committees that are a part of the Mountain Community Capital Fund. One is the operating committee, which would be a part of sort of the review process, establishes underwriting guidelines, which would sort of direct how the money should be sort of spent. But we've also brought Patrick Fitzsimmons here today. He's going to talk a little bit about an example of what a Mountain Community Capital Fund loan would be. He's got a few examples that he'll share with us. And in particular, I think we'll talk to specific industries that we're looking at. It's more than just, restaurants. We have different examples there. So.
Good evening, Commissioners. So just to answer your question about concentrations of business sectors that we fund, and I'm going to give you examples that are based on the Mountain BizWorks portfolio, but the other lenders' portfolios would be very similar. So 20% of our loans are going to accommodation and food services type businesses. 8% go to arts, entertainment, and recreation. 4% to agriculture. 11% to manufacturing. 20% to services, and about 7% to professional organizations. So it's a real mix of the type of small businesses that we're funding here. And I want to say that our current loan loss rate is at 2%. That's probably better than most banks are able to obtain. And the Charlotte example that we used over its history of 10 years is at 4%. So when Tim referred to a 95% success rate, we're being conservative there because we anticipate this being even higher. Let me give you one example of a fellow that we have recently funded that would have been a prime candidate for this type of program. And I'm going to use a fake name. We'll call him Ryan. Ryan is an African-American citizen born and raised here in Asheville. He grew up and became an embalmer for a funeral company. He went away to get a job in other cities and worked for many years as an embalmer until finally had the opportunity to come back and work at a funeral home here in Asheville, where he worked for 20 years both as a contract funeral director and the embalmer. So he was pretty much doing all the duties at this funeral home. Finally, after this long of a career, he thought this was his opportunity as an entrepreneur to have his own business and open up his own funeral and memorial chapel. And so he came to us and we assisted him in doing that. He has now opened his business, has created 7 new jobs, and is a successful African-American entrepreneur in this community. That's just an example of the kind of folks we're trying to help out with this program. Are there other specific questions I can answer about how this fund might work?
What are the processes that, and Jane, both, whatever, go through to get a loan?
They would come to, so participants in the program would come to one of the lenders, us and Self-Help, for example, and they go through an underwriting process very similar that you would at a bank, the same kind of process, except that we're going to be a lot more flexible with some of the requirements that a bank would have. For example, many folks who would be applicants for this program would be minority entrepreneurs or people who have had a history of bad credit or don't have adequate collateral to get a bank loan. So we're working with people who are not bankable at this time, but they still go through an underwriting process. We're going to be much more flexible with the requirements of obtaining a loan.
And with the process, is it required that they go through training?
It is. We have a technical assistance program which includes both individual coaching in business as well as we have a series of business training programs. And participants in this program would be required to make use of those services.
And we also have Rachel Nygaard with us.
So
Here's some additional information.
I'm sorry. I've got another question for you, sir, before you complete. So, I mean, you're achieving just a 2% default rate, which is very good. So I'm assuming that, a few people up front are being told that our service is not right for you.
Some.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would think quite a few, but maybe not. Maybe not. Because, I was, like my colleague, not to his extent, but was involved in a lot of loans in the past. But I was just curious if there was quite a few that was sent in another direction, or if you had some thoughts on how that that low rate is achieved.
So our low rate is achieved because we couple lending with learning. So our borrowers don't just get a check and walk out. They go to classes first, or they get coaching first, and even after they have opened up their business, they continue to get coaching. So that's what makes our success, is by coupling that learning with the lending program.
That's the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
The way I look at this, Commissioners, this is no different than the economic development funds we give to the large companies. And I can tell you from my experience, 40 years in banking, this is something that's needed. Because the big banks today, they're not going to deal with loans like this. Matter of fact, I had to send people to you, to BizWork and to Self-Help and other organizations. And when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, this will create, if done right, and from what I've seen and read, you are doing it right. This will create as many jobs or more over the long term of the 5, 6, or 7 years, and with these small businesses is what we'll give to one large business, and we'll be giving less money when you think about it. You know, we've given some of these businesses millions of dollars, but here you get more bang for your buck because we're actually giving them crumbs. But to these people, it's going to work. And I will say the one example you gave is a young man I sent to you. I know him, and I watch him grow up. So, but when I see what he's done with his business and how successful he is now, it's more than paid off, and will continue. Yeah.
If y'all don't mind, I just wanted to add one thing also. This program originally was developed in order to hit a particular gap, and that is that what we found over the years is that low-income folks and people of color very often, they're one, and I'm talking about strong loan candidates. We're not talking about people that could not qualify for a loan anyway, but people whose one missing part is collateral. And this program allows us to help those folks who don't have friends and family or whatever to fall back on to supply that collateral. So to me, it's filling a major gap, and it has in Charlotte. I know we're not Charlotte, we're Asheville, but you know, in Charlotte, it's allowed us to go from 60% lending to low income and people of color to 80%. And so that's a pretty impressive leap, which I would urge you all to support.
So to provide some summary, I'm Rachel Nygaard, Strategic Partnerships Director, and I've enjoyed partnering with Tim in the economic development side of the house. My partnerships in my role often tend to be with the nonprofits, and this project really brings together, through workforce, a focus on one of this board's strategic priorities, which is to create that robust local economy, specifically creating opportunities for small businesses with an emphasis on historically underserved populations. And what Patrick and Jane were speaking to is that this program essentially extends the reach for the lenders. So the example that Patrick gave is a good one, except for he's somebody that was able to qualify for that loan through that already existing portfolio. So essentially, this borrower comes in and sits down, and they're going through small business assistance, USDA, or whatever loan options might be available for the small business. And without this, there's essentially one factor or a couple of factors that keep that person from being able to access that small business loan. So establishment of this program provides that guarantee so that more small businesses can begin or grow their business. So just to wrap this up, the Mountain Community Capital Fund county dollars were budgeted by the Board of Commissioners last October, and then in the spring, let me check the date, in April, the Board of Commissioners moved those funds into a special projects fund where they sit at this time. So tonight is not an allocation or a budgeting of those funds because they're already budgeted. Tonight, what we're asking for from the staff recommendation, if you want to flip to the next slide, is to, maybe I have this. Is to authorize, there's a resolution in your packet which would authorize the county manager to execute that allocation of services and duties agreement. And then expend those funds through the associated deposit note. And we think that this aligns with, like we've talked about, your priorities and is a way to extend those pathways to economic mobility to more people within the community. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Okay. Questions or motion?
I've got just a comment, and probably a motion. So I'm going to be clear. This is already in the budget, and we are not loaning this money.
Correct.
This money is for collateral, and the default rate is currently 2 to 5%. That's correct. And so that money will be sitting in a loan reserve, just like an affordable housing reserve, or just like any of the other reserves that we have in the county. Is that right?
It would be expended in that reserve. That fund would be held by the custodian of the account, which would be self-help. And they would hold the funds that were approved by the city of Asheville, $250,000, and the funds approved by Buncombe County. And they would administer that fund on behalf of the entire program.
Have we approved the funds? Excuse me.
Excuse
Have
me?
we approved the 200,000?
Yes.
When did?
It's,
In October of 2017, the Board of Commissioners budgeted those funds. In April of 2018, those funds were moved from the annual budget to a special projects fund because we realized that this project was not going to be ready within the last fiscal year. And that was available for you to spend in this fiscal year.
okay, but it's only expended in the case of default. This money is, what we're doing is putting this money in reserve to be used so that you have the ability to, for these folks to have these loans. It gives you the security to be able to do that, be able to go out and seek, these folks out.
That's accurate. And it actually can grow a little bit through loan origination fees that are bundled into loans.
Okay, I don't even know that. So.
More details that are in that agreement.
Right.
Yes.
But, so is that an accurate assessment of
Yes.
this? Yes. So I'm going to move approval based on that information.
I'll second. I'm really very excited about this. I was happy that we did that years ago with BizWorks. The amount of jobs that were created, I think at that point we invested $50,000, and how you were able to leverage that and increase those funds. And for me, on a really personal note, in 2001, I had an abusive marriage. I had to have restraining orders, and but I was tied up with a business, and I had to leave that home, that abusive home. And I was fortunate because I was able to call a friend because there was an opportunity that presented itself for a loan like this. And she said yes. I was very fortunate. And to this day I look back and that was like a life raft for me in many, many ways. And I can only appreciate the people that are in similar circumstances that it changed my life. And, what I did with that was create a very successful business. I'm able to pay living wages, health insurance, and it carries over. But had I not had that ability, I don't know what would have happened to me. So I am thoroughly supportive of all the work. I appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing more about what you all do.
The other thing I'm going to say is this example that was given, that gentleman is paying taxes on his business, or her business, or whoever it is. He's paying taxes on that business, and all we're doing is all we're doing is the collateral.
We're not going in the small business loan business.
No, we're not. We're not.
Yeah.
You did that.
Let's go take public comment on the motion. Any members of the public who'd like to speak the motion? Mr. Young.
First and foremost, I see this as a program helping people that need help. And I don't think that using terms tied to race is beneficial in this program. I'm sorry. Because I think if we really want to start seeing people, guess what we got to do? We got to see people, not race. So that's my big point. Matter of fact, if you'll read the Daily Planet this month, you'll see I wrote a half a page on that. But I also heard when it was first brought up some concern about the quarterly report. I also heard about examples where it was very, very successful and only a 2% loss rate or whatever. Maybe it would be beneficial to help the taxpayers be excited about where their money's going. And maybe it would be beneficial to the commission if they would issue a monthly report and make you aware of these individuals that you're helping, because some of those individuals might be offering a service or something of need, because today you can't find anybody to do any work. You know that's a fact. So there are some things that can be done here through your county channel and through these meetings, which are televised and you get 200 to 300 people watching them, to publicize the positive aspects of the programs rather than using terms categorizing people. And then the program can be more successful, because success does breed success. Just like this young man, now he's hiring 7 people, and Joe, he's paying taxes, those 7 people are paying taxes. So it's not just him, it's the 7. So those are just some thoughts that I think are probably worth considering. A lot of what I say, you just let it go in one ear and out the other, but that's all right, because I feel good when I say it, because I know it's the truth. Thank you very much.
All right, anybody else? All right, Commission, there's a motion to approve. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks. Great presentation. We appreciate what y'all are doing. Supporting people who want to start a small business, have a dream, what we can do is it's a great, very worthwhile effort. So glad to be a partner in the effort. Thanks for being with us. All right, next up is a proposal for a change order of $267,000 to replace the chiller in the Elm building. Jennifer Chilton, I believe, is. Who is it? Okay, sorry.
If you prefer Jennifer to talk.
Either way.
Thanks for hanging around.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Clint Shepard, Director of General Services, which involves facilities and new construction. As you recall, you did discuss and vote upon and approve current work taking place on Navy Tech campus for various capital improvement projects. 11 buildings consisting of roof replacements, HVAC repairs, and fire alarm repairs. The project is budgeted at $4 million. We negotiated a contract for $3.7 million, and we are on site working. Coincidentally, since then, we had a catastrophic failure of an existing chiller for the Elm building, and I will say that it is 30 years old, so it's really no surprise that it failed to the point beyond repair. So because we are on site working already, there's obvious financial advantages. Just go ahead and execute this change order. Again, the project has been budgeted for $4 million, contracted for approximately $3.7 million. So the current budget that has been approved can support this change order, and this change order is an obvious need. We're in mild weather. It's a great time to change out the chiller. We're already on site working. Cranes are there. Subcontractors are there. We won't be paying a mobilization fee, et cetera, et cetera. So it's my recommendation to go ahead and move forward with this change order execution. Any questions or comments?
All right, is there a motion?
I move approve.
Is there a second? Okay. Further discussion?
No, yeah, there is discussion. We're sitting here and we have our staff coming here basically late in the evening on something we know we gotta do. And there's money there to do it with, and we've already approved the money. This should be on the consent agenda, not being put on the general. So that's where I'm at, but I'm here for to approve it.
All right.
So, procedural questions, since we're discussing it, and Mr. Fryer has brought up that point. If we see something on, if it's in the main agenda, can you move it to the consent agenda in the pre-meeting? Yeah, so we can do that now.
All right. Any public comment on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up, discussion of a study on extending water lines from the town of Canton to Inca. And who's gonna tease us now?
You want to start or I can start?
Yeah, I'll start.
Get up close to your mic.
Been requested by three of the commissioners to look at the possibility of doing a preliminary engineering study. This would be for water and sewer lines going from the sewer. We think we can do possibly tying back into MSD's system, and we'll be meeting with them starting tomorrow to discuss that. The other part would be getting water into that area, and there's two ways to do that. One would be discussing it with Asheville, but the other way would be discussing it with Canton and Haywood County. And so I've made some preliminary discussions with the town manager in Canton, and we'll be meeting with him and the new Haywood County manager probably within the next week or two to have a preliminary discussion between our staffs on it, and then see where we go from there. But there's a lot involved in even a preliminary engineering study. But where we're at right now is just collecting some of the information. This map that we've provided you is from our county planning department off of our GIS system. And just to go over briefly, those are 20-foot contours because we just wanted to see the lay of the land. It's also overlaid with, in blue lines, those are the existing water lines from the city of Asheville. And then, of course, they head west over to the county line and then on into Haywood County. The yellow lines that you see are the existing sewer lines that are owned by MSD going back into Asheville and ultimately to their wastewater treatment plants. So we're going to take a look at this and then at some point we may be back to you with what it might take to do a preliminary engineering study. And the difference is a preliminary engineering study looks at in broad brush. It does not lay out a full design because that would be much more expensive, and you don't want to go to that cost unless you think you're prepared to go forward with actually doing a construction project. But what this will look at is the sewer line capacities, also the pump stations, whether they can handle more flow, and if so, how much. We look at the topography and see, is any of this going to be gravity flow? Is some of it going to require pump stations? We don't know any of that at this point. We'll need to find that out. Of course, water is under pressure, so it's not gravity flow or anything like that. But depending on what the differences are in elevation, we may have to have water tanks, you may have to have booster pump stations. So, and then of course the other thing is we need to look at what are the appropriate size lines, and a lot of that is based on what's the potential service area, and particularly on sewer. And of course, with the unique topography in the mountains, not all of the drainage basin area that would be identified is developable. So what we would want to do is look at what is the drainage basin, and then out of that, how much acreage is actually developable. So we'll start those talks and see where that gets to, and we'll report back to you on that.
So I just got a couple comments. So where this come from is over the years, those in the western part of the county, you know, have been wanting to get water and sewer, and, you know, to their businesses, and MSD goes from development to development. And in the last few years, there's been some conversation with Haywood County and Canton, and so people are requesting a feasibility study just to see if it's possible to bring those services from Haywood County, which is a reasonable request from the constituents. So tonight we're starting the dialogue on how we can create that conversation and see what the cost would be for those entities as far as a study to see what actually can be done. Because what we've got so far is well, we don't really have anything. We don't know the cost of it. But I think there's some connections there that we have with Haywood County. And there's some changes in Haywood County. If you've been to Canton recently or seen some of the good things they're doing over there, I think it's a good time to have this conversation with Haywood County.
George, have you talked to Asheville any about the water?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah, because I think it would be good to include them.
We will.
Yeah, okay.
So at this point, there's not a request for, to hire anyone to do feasibility study. This is just our staff talking to
This is just
staff of other.
information. At this point, it's just
Yeah.
staff to staff and information gathering. And, you know, we want to talk to MSD. In fact, we have a meeting with MSD tomorrow. And then we want to talk to Canton and Haywood County together, because if you're going to go to Canton and tie into their system, part of this will go through Haywood County. So we want to bring them to the table as well. Because obviously on something like this, if we do tie into Canton, you're going to have two additional governmental entities involved in this. And obviously that's Canton, Haywood County, and then of course Buncombe County.
Yeah.
As far as looking at this. And then of course the real issue is what's the price going to be for the study? Then the study would determine what would the price be to construct.
That's right.
And of course, a lot of it is, it's not only the technical feasibility, but it's the economic feasibility of it. What would be the benefit, and is the cost worth doing that?
And I think at this particular time, what we're looking for is to move in the direction of the exploration of the study, the feasibility of it, and trying to determine what that would be and how much that would be.
That's right.
You know, at a sooner than later date.
Yeah, also, I mean, not to say that every single infrastructure project that might ever come up needs a whole kind of countywide policy to underlie it, but it does raise some policy issues too, though.
It does.
Right? I mean, in terms of the county has not been in the business of, building sewer lines or water lines. I mean, it's basically been, that's MSD's job. Their philosophy, I think, has been, a lot of us have served on MSD at different times, and we know that they're doing a great job of, mostly kind of plowing their investment back into fixing the existing, many hundreds of miles of infrastructure they have, and that remains a big need. So they've not, I think their idea has been, we don't want to spend our money on new extensions when we still have new, so much existing infrastructure to take up, but if there's a new development or something like that, then the developers ought to pay for that. So,
And that's part of the discussion we want to have tomorrow. Yeah. To talk about that. So I want to get clear in my mind exactly what their extension policy is.
I just, anecdotally, when the ASPCA built a rehab center facility in Weaverville, they went to MSD and they said, can we get sewer lines to Weaverville from one to the other? And the MSD said no. So they have some sort of adapted. So, there's challenges.
there's challenges. And, I mean, if you look at the map, and it'd be good to be able to get this map online where the public could access it. This one here, it's very good. I mean, you know, when you look at the heavy orange line, I mean, it's easy to see the gap, you know, from there to the western part of the county. And there are, I mean, diesel, if you go out to exit 37, there's a diesel power. If you go out there and look at that business, it's Carolina Logistics, it's huge. There's other businesses out there, some of them are represented in the room tonight. But to go from point A to point B, it does create some challenges. And it'd be good to see what options are.
Yeah,
It'd be good to know.
and that's what we want to do.
Right.
Let's take a look at it and see what we got.
All right, so this is just a kind of a discussion item. Any further, no vote being taken on it? Any further discussion this evening?
I have a question for Chairman. We have a couple of people here that, only two, that I see that are from that area that will wish to comment. Would it be okay to take comment on this now instead of them waiting to the end? Would that be okay?
Well, I'm fine with that. So, 30 members of the public would like to speak on this item. We'll start over here and we'll get everybody.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to take a minute or two to speak. I'm Howard Bedingfield from Lincoln County Fire Department. The water issue in west side of Inca has been something that's been pretty passionate for me since about March 15, 2014. That was day 2 after I started a job out there. So that was something that I identified really early on. Had a lot of talks and discussions with community leaders, business leaders, and I'm really, really pleased to hear that this is moving forward. I want to thank you, because this is something that is truly passionate for me. My goal from day one is to be able to provide the best fire protection to all of the district. This is going to help. This is something that I personally don't have any control over when it comes to insurance ratings. I need your help with that. It would be a big, big benefit to the fire protection district. Beyond that, I'm also a participant and member of the Inca County Business Association, and I hope I'm going to do them justice in saying so. There's a lot of businesses out there, as you just mentioned, that are spending ungodly amounts of money to provide their own water and sewer. I personally don't know this for a fact, but I've been told that there's a lot of the older sewer systems and the older houses and things that are failing. So we've got environmental concerns. And having water and sewer out on that corridor on 1923 going up into Haywood County and back this way, it's going to be a phenomenal benefit economically, for fire protection, and for the environment. So again, I thank you for having this discussion. It's been a long time coming for me, 4 years, that I've been wanting to have something like this talked about. So I appreciate it, and there's a colleague of mine back here that Gary Ball has a business out there on that corridor. He needs it and would really, really like to see this move forward. So thank you. I'll try to answer any questions. If you got anything, I don't know if I can or not, but I'll do my best. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't think we have any other questions right now, but thank you very much for being here and sharing your thoughts. Ms. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I guess being old is not a bad thing. You can remember some other things that you don't remember. me and Al knows we're older. This ain't no new discussion, Mr. Manager, about the water in the city in Canton. This is going to open up another wild ride, because when you get the city of Asheville County into the water business, you had that fight and a lawsuit and legislative coming out of that. So we got Lake Logan out in Canton that's going to provide a lot of water if you can use that water. The other thing is you got Champion, well, called Blue Ridge now. You've got them being given the inside scoop on their sewer by the city in Canton. So I'm just wondering what kind of political football this is going to start. Because if you get into the water and the city of Canton wants to use their Lake Logan, then Asheville City is going to say something, and it's going to tie up like we did in back out in Hendersonville with the water out there. So I want you to think of the history of what we got into with county government, the city government, with water, and what you're going to get into here when you start thinking about this. Because the city sewer business, Blue Ridge is going to take up a big hunk of sewer. And what I would say is, let's talk and find out just how much Blue Ridge is willing to put up front and how much they can contribute in building this structure if it even comes to pass. Because they're a big outfit, they got plenty of money. The lawsuits from the contamination going down that other side of Pigeon River into Tennessee, they had a big lawsuit over that, you know. So when you think about lawsuits, you better be careful about how you proceed with this. Information is good, but there's some history here that you better get out and dig out and put out front so we can figure out, you know, if you've been in the barnyard, you know where to step sometimes. Thank you.
Tell you what I'm grinning about. I also happen to have a degree in treating sewer. Not only do I know the water, I know the sewer. That's how I can put up with these meetings up here in politics as much as I do. But a point came up that you need to hear. Technically, septic tanks are not, and I repeat, are not a permanent solution for treating wastewater. That's why in your own rules and regulations, you have at least an acre for a house, because you have to have another area to put it when the line fails. But if the first line fails due to soil conditions, and you move it to the second line, where are you going to go for the third line? Septic tanks are nothing but passing it on down the road. That's a fact. Check it to see. Because I just got through having to take in a 1 acre field to redo my septic tank from my house that was built in '76. So you do have to expand it. Now when it comes to the water, let me tell you something. Champion with industrial waste will be tickled to get domestic waste. Because guess what domestic waste has in it? Biological oxygen demand. Guess what chemical waste has? Chemical oxygen demand. And guess what keeps a wastewater treatment plant operating? Organisms that depend on oxygen. So they could benefit from mixing it in with that industrial waste. But Asheville could also benefit from it, because MSD right now has more independent small breweries discharging into MSD than the city of Portland, Oregon. And folks, the waste from a sewer plant, from a brewery, is the most richest, highest concentration of crap that needs to be treated of anything on this earth. And they're right now having to hold some discharges in some of the breweries and can't release it to MSD all at once, or it would overload the plant. So, yeah, Jerry, water and sewer is a problem. Get your facts, please.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you. None others, we're going to move on to the next motion. Next item on the agenda, so we've got 3 items that we added to new business beginning of the meeting. Well, one was on the agenda, it moved to new business, 2 other items added to new business. One is the Scott Jones legal representation item, the other 2 are the 2 school capital commission items. Let's do the Scott Jones legal item first. This is an item to authorize payment for services rendered and to discuss future legal services that the county may want to engage in or not. So, Mr. Wood, did you want to?
Yeah, basically, where we're at on that is that I don't believe y'all formally voted to employ Mr. Jones. We have been using his services, and so what I'm asking you to do is make a formal motion to appoint him, and to authorize a contract with him. And the second thing is to authorize payment for legal services previously provided. I believe those have been over the last 4 to 5 months.
All right. I'll just make one comment on this item, kind of kick it off. Obviously the county has been working through some challenges with the different senior staff that have been charged with various wrongdoings and illegal actions. And we've had a couple of different people helping us to address this. We've got Ron Payne, who has been retained to file civil suit to recoup taxpayer money. That has already recouped more than $2 million back to the county, and I think we're optimistic that we're going to see more to recover those funds. Scott has helped advise the commission on other issues related to the criminal investigation and other certain matters that we asked him to look at. So, discussing this with other commissioners and staff, my recommendation would be to pay Mr. Jones for the services that he rendered. But I think as we think about the process going forward, because this criminal investigation is not over and the civil suits are not over either. But they're all related to each other. And I think, in the interest of trying to handle this in the most efficient way possible, my suggestion would be that we ask Ron Payne to be our point person in terms of outside legal counsel on the criminal investigation, the civil suit, all those related matters. So I think they've all done a good job helping us, but I think going forward, I think that'll be the most efficient way to handle it. That'd be my recommendation.
Is that a motion?
That's the motion.
But I have a problem.
First let me ask, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Go ahead. Commissioner Farrar.
We have gone for months. The bills keep coming. Mr. Newman, you have talked to this man more than most people can imagine. We got a $30,000 bill, over $5,000 of it's to you. There's very few people in this room that even know about this. But we've got 3 bills from Scott Jones. He never come before this room. We have a county manager. She's sitting right there. Her name's Heather. We hired her.
County attorney.
County attorney, excuse me. Yeah, okay. I was in the meeting that evening and I saw basically what was happening. I have sat and watched an attorney sit in the room that has never been approved in closed sessions, watching Ron Payne tell us exactly what he was doing and how much money he ran. After the second bill, which I have, I put on the bill, Ron Payne brought us a check, and Al Whiteside knows this because we both got to hold it, $2,088,000. Ron Payne brought us a bill for $27,000. Now, if somebody could explain to me why we have Ron Payne, y'all wanted a resolution for the what is it called? The audit, the forensic audit. Well, guess what? You sent it to Scott. Scott got with Lamar with this, and that cost us $120. We got 3 attorneys working on staff. We have a county attorney sitting right over there. So a lot of this is what other people wanted at the time. This is what you wanted at the time. And you can see it because we have spent over $5,000 out of the $30,000 that was yours. And there's more than that. If you look, Beach Ferrara, $150. That's June 11th. 26 is Frost, $180. Newman, $925. That was the first month's bill. That comes to $1,200. But $925 is yours. But the second month billing in August, and I have all this if anybody in the audience wants it. Newman LaJoy, resolution, $120. Newman, $3,000. $3,000, Brownie. But the worst thing about this whole deal is I have the contract. And we supposedly hired him the same day that we hired Saturday. We had never hired him. Period. And it says in the contract until the contract is delivered to them that, you know, they would not charge us. There's been $9,600 and some charged to us before you actually, the 19th on this contract. So that's, you know, whatever people want to do, I'm not for paying because we didn't hire him. You hired him. So if you want to pay him, go for it. Because Ron Payne has done a fantastic job for us. Totally. That's all we need. Her and Ron Payne. We don't need 4 attorneys sitting in that back room. And that's what we've had more than one time. I was against it. I walked out of the room when this happened because I saw what was happening, because that's what you wanted. And, you know, we spent $40,000 a few weeks ago for an election that starts, I guess, tomorrow. And now we're spending supposedly $30,000 for something that we truthfully, a man sat and watched a person tell us what he needed and charge us $620. It's all written down. I've got it all marked off. And that's plain and simple. But we have to quit doing this. Out of all this, Mike Fryer wasn't spoke to, Robert Presley, Joe Belcher, or Al Whiteside.
That's
Okay,
not,
that's-
let me just respond. That's, well, let me go first since she's addressing me. A lot of what you just said is not true. It is true that when the commission discussed this, you did walk out of the meeting and you left. And the remainder of the other 6 commissioners continued discussing this for another 45 minutes or so. And I'm just one commissioner. I certainly don't have the authority to do things without commission approval. My takeaway from that discussion was that the commission wanted to retain Ms. Hockaday as our permanent attorney and wished to retain Mr. Jones on a temporary basis to help us navigate some of the very unique challenges that the commission was facing at that time, which involved the county manager and our assistant county manager going under federal indictment. So in terms of me spending time talking to Mr. Jones, you know, I think it's not unusual that when you would retain legal counsel, that they oftentimes want to talk to their clients about the work they're doing and get feedback. And so certainly I did have conversations with him. I think that's, you know, certainly to be expected. And I'll also just comment that after that session, the engagement agreement with Mr. Jones was forwarded to all the commissioners, and I said, I don't have it in front of me, but basically that based on the commission guidance, we intend to move forward with this. Let me know if you have any comments. That was sent to all commissioners. I don't think I got any comments to that. I sent it to every commissioner. So anyway, those are a few of the things I just want to respond. I respect your opinion, but I just would like to share my perspective.
Well, the main thing on that is the day Kathy Hughes had to sign the back of this, she was part of it. And the day that Mandy Stone left, and I called you, and I called everybody else to try to get them in. And then we go upstairs, I took a copy to Mr. Fruit, and it showed at that point she had never signed off. She never signed off until basically the 19th of June, and, you know, that's, it says in his contract, I have it here too, that they won't charge. So there's $9,600 there. That if they want the rest of the money, if everybody agrees to it, I'm fine. But personally, the way it was brought, the way it was done, this county has never had 2 county attorneys, ever, in 36 years, ever. So, you know, we're breaking new ground. Anything Brownie Newman wants, that's what we're going to get. We're going to send stuff to Raleigh to make sure we get extra voting place. There's more things to come up, Brownie.
Other commissioners?
This is just a simple thing.
Mr. Belcher.
Yeah, I do want to make a comment. So I remember very distinctly the conversation when we had 2 very capable attorneys. And I do want to make a comment. So I remember very. Hey, how are we doing that? See, that's scary. I just threw my voice over there, didn't I? What's going on?
Is that gentleman?
Okay, so anyhow, we had a need for a county attorney for here. There was, we were having discussions about 2 capable attorneys. I made a suggestion that, I don't remember exactly how I made it, but I made the suggestion that we hire Ms. Hockaday, and that there were those that was interested in, my mind just went blank on Scott Jones, and that we do that on a trial basis and based on an hourly rate. I did not choose to use his services or contact him, or he did not contact me. But I do think that the motion was to not continue to utilize the services because we've already, we have someone that can take care of that. And so from my position on trial basis, the trial's over, it's fine, we should move on. I agree that the amount is a lot. And for that reason, we need to move on. However, attorneys are very expensive, and anybody that gets on the phone with them, it's ticking, you know, and that's not, you know, a negative, that's just a fact. So, but I was okay with the trial basis because, you know, we had 2 capable attorneys, and I felt like that we acquired the attorney for in the courtroom, I mean in here, that we need, that would be dedicated to the commission and be able to be here and give us the feedback that we needed, and that's why I supported that. So that was.
Chairman Newman, if I could just ask a question about your motion. Are you proposing that the contract with Ron Payne, which, as I understand it, is currently with Buncombe County, be restructured so that the contract is to represent the Board of Commissioners as a client? Or are you suggesting that there be, Ron would be retained to represent both the county and the Board of Commissioners?
That's, Commissioner Beach-Farrar, that's not part of the motion in terms of changing Mr. Payne's engagement agreement. So that's not, I didn't mean for that to be part of the motion. But simply, I think it was simply sharing that if we're not going to continue to retain Scott Jones, then we would be looking to Ron Payne to advise the commission and county on matters beyond just the civil suit, which has been his main focus today. I'm not aware of whether that would require changing his agreement, or we could simply, you know, ask him to advise us on matters broader than just the civil suit focus. I just haven't reviewed it in detail, so I don't know if it would require change.
I think that could be a separate topic.
Yeah, because I don't see us opening up additional responsibilities for Mr. Payne. I mean, Mr. Payne has certain responsibilities now, and that's my interpretation of the motion, is that we just continue using what we have.
What I want people to do is look down this way. We have a county attorney that we hired. We can ask her questions, she can tell us if she can't answer.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we need to be. I'm sorry. Everything that this lady has done for us so far, that I look at, is very qualified to do. Ron Payne is the person that's doing the suing. He's the one that's trying to bring the bacon back home. And this lady down here, if we need to use her 10, 12, 14 hours more a month, let's do it. You know, as long as she feels comfortable that she can do it, you know, we're depending. I mean, I look at the number 3 bill, and it's economic development. Well, he's talking to his partners, going out and doing everything in the world, because that's not his partake. And we're paying him $3,000. That wasn't his partake. And he told us exactly the same thing that our staff attorneys told us. Totally, no different whatsoever. How we got, you know, it wasn't just go look at a lawsuit against Wanda Green and them. Here we got him looking at economic development. We got him looking at everything. We even got him looking at resolutions and paying him $120. What are we doing? This lady down here can give us a better idea of that. That's why we hired her, and I'm going to support her.
All right, thanks. Other commissioners who?
Yeah, Chairman,
Go ahead.
Weigh in again. I respect and appreciate the representation we're getting from the talk today, and my perspective on this has been and continues to be that given the extraordinary and unusual position that we're in, and given that the federal investigation is not yet completed, and we don't know what additional findings will be, that Board of Commissioners, our responsibilities and our interests are best served by having an attorney who has specific experience on federal investigation representing the Board of Commissioners specifically to advise us about our responsibilities, our duties, and specific issues related to governance that we need to be thinking about. So that's been my position all along, my position. And I have found that the configuration that we've been using where Ron Payne has very capably been representing the county to recover funds, and Natakade has been very capably representing us on procedural and process matters, and Scott Jones has been very capably representing us on ongoing advice around an ongoing federal investigation, has been working. So I support the configuration we have consistently.
Thank you. Other commissioners haven't spoken on the motion.
I think where we are, and I agree, this is not normal what we're going through. We're in uncharted territory when you look at the situation we have in Buncombe County. But what I want to see us now do is let's bring this to a head. I think with you, Scott, we own the money. Let's pay him the money. And going forward, we'll stop right here. I agree with Joe there. We terminate his services and just see if we can broaden the services of Ron Payne. And since he's talking to the authorities and representing us, and I get information from him, and I don't think he's charged for our conversations, but you know, I think let's bring this to a head, because we've got, and move on.
All right.
I'd like to vote.
All right. Okay. If there's a motion and a second, are there any members in the public who wish to speak on the motion? Or is it a common motion? Mr. Yeller.
This is a hot topic that is the root of the problem which we had with the previous county manager. Too much business is conducted right back there. Your county attorney can tell you, you cannot vote back there, you cannot assemble a vote, you cannot nod a head, you cannot all agree. All decisions involving hiring an attorney has to be voted on right here in these chambers in front of the public. And that's the cause of all of these problems, folks. I guarantee you had Ron Payne hired before you ever presented him. Now, I don't even remember seeing this Scott guy at all. Never heard of him until you brought it up, Mike. So what does that tell you? So I'm going to ask our current county attorney to remind each and every one of you, no voting in closed sessions. All votes must occur in public, period. Stars, dots, exclamation points.
All right, who wins? All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Restate the motion, please.
The motion is to pay the Scott Jones fee for the services he's provided, but basically the intention is to not continue to engage in, to let Ron handle, all the matters related to advising the commission and the county on issues related to the civil suit and any other issues related to the investigation. I mean, just to add a little bit more context there, as I think Commissioner Beach-Ferrara articulated, Ron Payne was not hired by the county commission. And he's never been voted on by the county commission, and I don't hear anyone asking for him to be. So that will. He was hired by the county. He was hired by the county manager, Mandy Stone, who he is now suing on behalf of the county, just to kind of be clear about how unique the circumstances that we are in. Yeah, he is billing the county for his legal services, but he was not retained by the county commission. Part of, I think, the rationale, I'll just speak for myself, but I think part of the rationale for wanting Scott is to have an attorney who was 100% representing the county commission, not the county manager, not county staff, but to make sure this body got sound advice about how we navigate, a very unusual legal situation the county's in. So the motion is to ask Ron to provide all that counsel for the commission and the county, and we'll do it through Ron, since I think it's a fair point that they're both involved in that, and there's a bit of duplication there. It's a fair point, and that's why I made the motion to do this way.
Thank you for clarifying that. And to Commissioner Fryer's, point, we have a very capable county attorney. That's why she's in the seat. That's why we've got her for, and we can rely on her for a lot of that information that we had, tried to rely on. A very capable attorney. Scott Jones is a good attorney, but we've tried it. We want to move on, and that's what we need to do tonight. And I'll be supporting the motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No?
All right. The sixth one, Jasmine voted against it. All right, the other two items we added to new business. The first is a request from the School Capital Commission to appropriate $76,400 for what we're referring to as the BDA study. And I'll ask Mr. Wood to share a little bit more information on this. But just again, as a reminder, we talked about this item at I think the meeting before last. We were pursuing a state grant for these communications systems, which will make sure that first responders and public safety officers can communicate from outside to inside our school buildings. Some of the buildings have been found to the current equipment doesn't allow for good reception with people inside the building, which creates an obvious public safety risk. So this is $76,400, which will be for a study of all the county and city schools to ascertain what which school campuses need this improvement. We discussed this yesterday at School Capital Fund Commission, and Commissioner Belcher, would you like to make any additional comments on it?
I mean, we heard a lot of requests, and this one is one we've been talking about and rises to the top, in my opinion. And I think one of the reasons why we're moving forward with it, and we put it on the agenda tonight, was because we had to initiate the study. We didn't feel like we should wait to initiate the study and move on, and everybody was unanimous on doing that. So.
And these would be funds. This is recommended by the School Capital Commission from the pool of funds that they have to invest. So this is not county general funds. This is from the School Capital Fund Commission, dedicated funds.
Which is the Article 39 sales tax. Well, just to cap that, So that's basically what we did. I asked y'all at the last meeting for permission to go and ask them for the money. We did that. It was well received. Previous to that, I had gone to a joint Buncombe County, Asheville City school system. They have a joint committee on safety. And we made a presentation there. They also endorsed it. And so I think everybody recognizes the need for it. As far as the vote the other day, I think the consensus was we want to move forward with the actual implementation of it, but everybody wants to see what the results of the study are first, and then we'd be able to know exactly how many schools we're talking about. There's one unresolved issue on this. If you remember when I came to you before, I said that the study would be $87,000. The reason we're only asking for $76,400 is that I believe it's 8 of these schools are charter schools. And so the $76,400 will cover 52 of the schools, but there's 60 involved. So the question, and you cannot use that Article 39 money because charter schools do not get to share in the capital money by state law. They do get to share in the operating money. So whenever you appropriate money for the schools, it's actually split not 2 ways, it's split 3 ways. Because their percentage of the school children, that goes to them. Then Asheville gets their percentage, and then Buncombe County gets their percentage. So, but that is not true on capital money. So the issue that brings forward to us is do you include them in the study or not? And if you do, then we would need to pay for that out of general fund money. My recommendation to you is that we pay for it. Because while the thing I do want to remind you of is that while charter schools are not under our school systems, under North Carolina state law, they are public schools, right? And those parents have paid taxes to support public schools.
So just one, of course, I'd be supportive of that, but it is important to know that the city of Asheville, if it's a new construction, that they have a requirement that this is already installed. Am I right? Am I remembering that right?
Well, it's actually the state fire code. Okay. So any new construction of a school would require that, Joe, but it's not just in Asheville.
So that doesn't, so, you know, we might be paying for 6 schools, we might be paying for 3 schools, we don't know.
That's right. So, but my recommendation to you would be the difference between $87,000 and $76,400. That's $10,600. I would recommend you take that out of the contingency and in the general fund and include the charter schools in the study. And then let's find out what the extent of the problem is between, how many of their problems, how many Asheville, and how many of Buncombe County.
So would we make a motion up to 87, or would we make a motion
I would say,
up to 76?
Well, if you're in agreement with what I'm proposing, you would, I think the recommendation should say, because the 76.4 would be coming from the Article 39 money. Okay. So I think it needs to be said that way, plus $10,600 coming from the general fund to cover the charter schools. So that way we've made a clear distinction about where the money's coming from.
So I made the motion yesterday, I'll make that motion today. I'll make that.
Okay, there's a motion to approve $76,400 from School Capital Fund Commission, sales tax revenues, $10,000, additional funding from the county's general fund for the study. I'll just make a comment on it. It's I've got kind of mixed feelings about the additional funding. I agree that, while you're doing a study, there's going to be some efficiencies in trying to just do them all, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
But the county doesn't provide capital funding for the charter schools, and so, if it comes back and there's some needs there, I certainly would not want this to be communicating that the county that we are setting up some expectation that the county is going to fund that. So I kind of feel like it may be a little bit misleading to kind of do this study if there's not, if it's not our role to actually implement it.
So,
And,
I don't disagree with that, so how do we communicate?
Well, I think we would need their permission, obviously, to go into the schools and do the study. So as our IT people go and contact them, we can make that point clear. That we're doing the study, the board has not committed to do any improvements that may be necessary. That's an issue for another day. And I would leave it at that at that point.
I think doing the study sends a signal that, things aren't coming on well.
How if we tell them that's not the case?
I mean, the ballpark, well, every project might end up being different. We're expecting the actual implementation to be around 75,000 per school.
75 to 80,000 per school on average. But we don't, and again, we don't know what we're going to find. I mean, we may go in there and they don't have any problems, or they have one or two. We don't know the extent of it yet.
So there's a motion and a second. I mean, I'm also a little concerned just about the precedent setting aspect of it too. But I do think it's a really important public safety issue though. So I think I'm going to support the motion personally, as long as we are real proactive in communicating that the county is not only are we not committing, we are not going to fund the capital improvements for charter schools to implement this.
That's right.
But we want them to have the information so that they can be aware of any gaps there, and that is just their responsibility. And that's the way the state has set this up. The charter schools have a lot of advantages compared to other schools. They have a lot of things they don't have to do that regular public schools have to do. So they've got a lot more flexibility in how they use their money, but there's certain things they don't get. They don't get some of the capital support that traditional schools do. So I want to respect those kind of recognize those distinctions. Any other comments on the motion?
I agree,
Yes.
it's just a study. I don't understand that part of, it's like getting an estimate on your car. That does not mean that it's set in stone. I think we're doing a study, not, we found these problems and, we're going to help you a little bit. But just keep it simple. It's a study,
That's what it
and
is.
I fully support it.
Any members of the public wish to comment? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. And then the last item is also a related public safety issue. And this was an item that was kind of an interesting project. It was jointly brought to the School Capital Commission by the county schools and the city schools. And it's essentially to do a comprehensive study of all these city and county school campuses throughout Buncombe County, to look at them for what can be done to improve the physical environment, the building structures themselves, security systems, to make them safer and evaluate any gaps that we have in our existing school campuses that could create exposure. So it's a very open-ended process. It'll be a kind of a unique look at each campus to see how we're doing and what could be done better. So this is a study, and I know we don't like to just spend money on studies, but this is about a pretty important topic. So we thought it was important enough that on all the other items School Capital Fund Commission has discussed yesterday, we decided to wait until our next meeting to make decisions, but I think everybody there felt this was such an important piece. The Capital Commission went ahead and recommended requesting commission approval of it at our meeting tonight. Commissioner Belcher, any additional comments on this?
It's just, it's also Article 39 sales tax. This is not coming from the general fund here at all. The only comment that I would make is that since we just approved the other study, that we should make sure that it's up to $400,000. If actually what we're doing now actually would save money on the study, because we're actually doing the radio frequency study for them. That we're approving up to $400,000. That doesn't necessarily mean we would spend that much money. So
That's right.
So I want to be clear on that.
And the other thing we should also be clear about is the reason that the commission held off on going forward with the funding to do the radio system we want to do the study, report back to them and say, we've identified we have X number of schools, and we'll also know how extensive the issue is. Because remember that 80,000 was an average. So we may have some that are less than that, and we may not have as many schools as we think we have a problem with. So what they wanted was clarity on what the study finds and then bring it back to them.
Well, the only other thing I'll say, and the reason the chairman's asking me to comment is because I'm on the commission now. So, but this has been a very hot topic in the community, and a lot of people have asked us as commissioners, what are you doing? What are you going to do? And of course, our hands are tied on certain things, but this allows us to be able to give some assurance to the public that the commission is actually in the city and the county is actually making a positive step in making sure there are school properties and entire properties and buildings and procedures are safe. So I support it.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes.
Yes. All right, from her and him, first motion and second, all right. Fantastic. Getting late. Those commissions are there. Okay. Any members of the public wish to comment? Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm confused. Are we talking about radio frequency, or are we talking about safety plans for all the schools of looking at the safety?
Yes, the second.
Second. All right. I don't know how dumb gets dumber, but every year that the school system is in business, they're all-time evaluating safety. They're all-time evaluating their capital and all their building needs, space and everything, and also the resource officers. How in the name of God did all this escape them for all these years that they've been following the safety plan of North Carolina? And I'd be asking for their safety plans that they had in existence for each year and find out why that this pieces that you're talking about, why has it escaped them? Because if they ain't got sense enough to go over the past few years of their safety plans that they have exonerated and got accolades over in Buncombe County of North Carolina, making such proud statements of how great they are, I want to know where all this has been in the past. Where's it at? They just bury these plans? To me, throwing money at something that they've already got information on, you need to get the information first before you start doing another study. First of all, they should have already been on top of this to begin with. I'd be asking that question. If you want to know something about the school, ask me. I don't know how many of them know much about school, but this gets pretty rough under my skin when we throw multi-millions of dollars at school systems and we think money's going to solve a problem again. We need to be asking about accountability. You got it?
All right, anybody else? All right, there's a motion and a second. I'll just respond to that briefly. Certainly the schools have safety plans. They take them very seriously. I think they're, and they have continuously improved them. So they're not starting from scratch, and everybody recognizes that. But we're just in a different day and age than we were before. I mean, I've got two kids in schools, and that just it's just a different level of threat than there has been in the past, and that's just the world that we live in right now. And we've got to, we cannot be satisfied with what we have today. We've got to be doing everything we can, and that's what this process is about.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to chime in on this because you look what they've done in the past. They have done the key locks that just the teachers can get in and out, or principal. The badges that's going. I think this has been an ongoing thing for many years. You don't talk about schools, I know about schools. That's one thing, I didn't learn a lot in school, but I know about it. And I'm gonna tell you, visiting these schools, and you see what's happened all over the United States, is we used to think a tree line was security. They can walk through them trees. We need fences. You go look at most of the schools we got, they are so easily, I say, through anywhere on that property. We need to close this stuff up. No, we don't need to make a prison out of it. But I think the day you say that we have got our schools proof that no one can get in there, and that, you're totally wrong about that. We got to continue the safety of these schools. Resource officers, if it takes chain link fences back in there. I can tell you 2 schools in my district, Candler and Pisgah, that you can come in from any angle you want to. And we're talking about first and second graders leaving one classroom that has to go outside of a building and go to another one. We witnessed what happened at Johnson Elementary a couple years ago. Very easily, a parent could kidnap their kid and be out of there in no time. So whenever we talk about safety, you've ruffled my feathers a little bit, because we will never stop on that.
I've got a motion and a second. If there's no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've got one board appointment, the Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee. We've got one applicant, Randy Rapp. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and last item on our agenda, for our public agenda, is a public comment. So any members of the public who would like to comment on any items that have not already been addressed by the commissions? All right. We do have a need for a closed session. Ms. Hockaday, could you tell us what that's about?
We need to enter into a motion and a vote to enter into closed session. Statute 143-318.11A3 to consider and give instructions to an attorney regarding the handling of a claim in an administrative procedure. And I have the claim number. It's Industrial Commission W11005.
Is there a motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And thank you, Commissioner. And we do not anticipate any action being taken by the board when we return from closed session. We expect to just go back into open session and then adjourn. All right, we're in closed session. We already did. Everybody did.
That's it.